Good morning, everyone. It's Saturday, which means it's time for yet another Salty Saturday morning. I am your host, Mr. Kadish. Get it right. Otherwise, I will smite you. And joining us today is our fantastic panel of nerds, starting with Blaine from Criticless.
What's going on, everybody? How are you doing? Yeah, I'm Blaine Andrews from Criticless, the app social media platform. What's up?
Yeah, thank you for being here today. And I'm sure we're going to dive into some of the Criticless features that you guys have been rolling out in terms of like the movies and TV shows we're going to be talking about today. But criticless.com, go check it out. If you haven't already downloaded it to your phone, you can find it on the iOS store and the Android store as well. Very cool app. And Matt Vader 74 is not here today, so instead filling in as our fearless leader in a very rare live stream appearance on Saturday, Alex, the salty nerd himself. How you doing, Alex?
I'm good. It takes a lot to get me up at 10 a.m. on a Saturday, so I'm here in solidarity for my boy, Matt Vader.
Yes, but Matt Vader will be back, so no fear to everyone out there who are Vader stans. Him and his feet will be here in full glory.
Fetishists, don't worry about it.
He'll be Saturday. Yes, he'll be back. He'll be back. And speaking of fetishists, he's here. He's queer. He's our gender non-conforming Latinx representational shield against all things woke. Brian from the Popcast. How you doing?
Hello, everyone. I'm mad that Alex is here. Like I said earlier, he's a more handsome version of me, and it makes me look worse. So I'm not a fan of that. Now, I love you, Alex, but like we're on the same stream. It doesn't work, dude. It doesn't work.
It's like looking in the evil universe mirror of myself.
Looking at myself like 18 years ago, and I'm like, oh, son of a bitch, I shouldn't have let myself go.
Well, you guys are sporting the mustache, right? The curly mustache.
Yeah. Yep.
What do you call those? The Van Dykes.
Hey, this is exactly how I look when I go to gay bars. Like that.
Well, speaking of gay bars, Odin is not with us right now.
That was a good transition. I like that.
That was good.
But he will be joining us later on in the live stream. He had a pineapple pizza emergency, which he just overcame. Speaking of which,
oh, there he goes.
Yeah, you had to stop another store from putting pineapple on pizza.
I did. It's a justice, and I have to make sure that pineapple never goes on pizza ever again. But I have to call out Mr. Kadish right away, because how dare you speak up Criticless when you barely even use it?
I lurk on it.
Who needs me when you got Odin? I mean, really?
He's a lurker.
Yeah.
Well, I was busy getting married. Did I mention I got married?
Right.
And if I wasn't so busy producing like a billion different YouTube things, I'd probably use it more. But
I couldn't figure out how to write a review for the first like 3 weeks. So
yeah, it was a little bit confusing for me too. But why do I need to post reviews, Odin, when you're just reviewing every single movie that ever existed?
No, this is true. Though I've slowed down quite a bit. There's people that are well beyond where I am at this point.
There's people getting wild in there. They're blowing my mind. I mean, it's like one night you go to sleep and they've got like 50. You wake up the next day, they've got like 300. I'm just like, this is wild.
Well, we welcome the Lord of the Shelves to join us on this Saturday morning. Thank you for being here, Odin. And thank you to everyone on our panel. We're going to have a great discussion today. But first, I want to give a big shout out to our Salty Saturday superstars. Number one, William Forbus, who is still undefeated at that $500 single super chat. But keep in mind, guys, once the new year comes, all these rankings get reset. So keep that in mind. Then we got Scotty Dub, Bob Dorsey, and of course, special shout out to the AstroNerdBoy. Thank you all so much for all your support. We really appreciate it. Then we got our loyalists, the people who very regularly donate to us. Joker Voice and Mexican Iron Man. Thank you guys so much. And we're going to get to your super chats in just one minute. But we also have our top gifters, who are still WG and Jillian N, although we've had many people gift subscriptions, and we appreciate those. And our goal for this live stream, guys, we've upped it 10 new members. So if we can get 10 new members on the Salty Nerd membership channel, we will be very, very happy. And we've already met our goal halfway, which we will get to in a second. But hey, guys, also give us a rating on Apple Podcasts. We're still trying to get those 5-star ratings so that we can apply to be officially accredited movie reviewers on that garbage website, Rotten Tomatoes. So, but we're already official movie reviewers thanks to Criticless. On
Right.
that.
Exactly. Verifying everything.
Now you just need to put the reviews out there, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
We got
Right.
special content creator accounts, don't we, Blaine?
You do. And yeah, we've got another one of those people in the chat as well. Kimmy Katiti's in here, who I've done several live streams with as well.
Well, we also want to give a big shout out to Scotty Dub, who is still our top contributor throughout the course of the year. Thank you so much for your support, Scotty. Really appreciate it. And now let's get to the super chats real quick. We have super sticker extraordinaire Gavin Blackburn for £2. Thank you, Gavin. Really appreciate it. Now we've got the Joker's voice using his membership comment. Member for 9 months. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Joker. Marvel's still not over 200 million. Sucks to suck. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a minute. But he follows up with another $10 super chat from the Joker's voice. Question for the panel. With Godzilla -1, Boy and the Heron, along with last year's RRR, will Hollywood studios, obviously not Disney, start looking at foreign market success here and pivot? What do you guys think? Do you think Hollywood will actually pay attention to what's actually working?
No.
Doubt it. Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
No.
I don't see it happening.
I wish. I mean, I've been saying this. I
Right.
would love more Godzilla films like Godzilla -1 and other just films like it. My wife and I are seeing The Boy and the Heron tonight. So we're very excited for that one. And Miyazaki's phenomenal. But unfortunately, they have gotten so used to putting out garbage and expecting people to see it because there's a name, there's an IP that people love. And, they got used to that for so long. It's going to take a long time for them to shift away, I think.
I think Hollywood is still under the mistaken impression that they are the tastemakers. Like they dictate what people like, as opposed to figuring out what people like and then giving them more of that. So obviously Disney is not on that path, and it's probably going to take a while for the other studios to kind of wake up to that. Although Universal, surprisingly, has been doing pretty well with giving people what it is they want. Same thing with Sony to a certain extent, anything that's not comic book related. So, Madam Web. All right, and from Mexican Iron Man for 20 pesos, I mean dollars, I saw your review of Godzilla -1, and Kadish and Alex broke my little Mexican non-YouTuber heart. You broke my heart, said like a Corleone. You broke my heart. Thus today, there is no Mr. Kadish. Instead, you're now movie intern review Kadish.
Yes.
I've been demoted, guys.
We've gone down this hole before, man. John Wick 4 was the same thing. Everybody hated on us for what we said about John Wick 4. A couple weeks later, people were like, "Oh, all right, I kind of see what you're saying." Just give it time. Give it time.
Yeah, you know what though? We were pretty like all four of us were on the same page when it came to John Wick 4.
Yeah.
With Godzilla -1, we all thought it was a good movie, but you and I just thought that it's been getting a little overrated in terms of like the praise that was heaped on it. So. It never said it was a bad movie.
No, it's good. It's good. It's just people are like, "This is the movie of the year. It's 100%. It's so amazing." It's like, okay, all right, chill a little bit. I know it's a foreign film and it's not woke, but that doesn't automatically means it's a 5-star.
Wait, you liked it? You could have fooled me. You could.
I did like it. I just didn't love it like most people did.
Yeah, Alex and I both gave it 3 stars.
Yeah, I think it's because y'all started going kind of after it, like going after the hype. And so it felt like you were, it's this film and you're just taking it down right away. And I think a lot of people, as you all know, people don't watch everything. And so they got there and they're like, I'm dipping out. They hated this movie, rage comments, and
Yeah. And then they left. And then at the end of the review, I say, yeah, it's like a 3.5, 3-star movie. Go see it. It's worth the price of admission. Right on. Godzilla -1. Nobody saw that part of the movie or the video.
Yeah, most of the people who clicked on the video didn't watch the video. They just commented on it and were like, you guys suck. But we're
right. I mean, Odin, let's be
that.
straight. It's no MonsterVerse movie, right? I mean, come on. But
Blaine, I hate you so much. That was a direct attack. I feel attacked.
Well, real quick, just a heads up. So this Tuesday, unfortunately, most of the Salty crew is going to be out of commission, but I am doing a special live stream based off of the suggestion that Mexican Iron Man himself made on one of our live streams, where we are going to be having a live stream full of YouTube producers, people whose responsibility is to get live streams on the air and organized. And it's going to be a how do you do it live stream, basically. So we're going to have Mexican Iron Man, we're going to have X-Ray Girl, we're going to have hopefully either Shane or Brian on there. They haven't responded to my email yet.
Just now.
We also might have Jonas J. Campbell from the DW Pro Show joining us as well. He's trying to figure out his scheduling because they moved their live stream to Tuesdays just to fuck with us. But it should be a good time, and hopefully all of you can join us for that. And finally, we want to give a big shout out to the membership queen herself, Jillian N., who has just gifted 5 Salty Nerd Podcast memberships, bringing us halfway to our goal of 10 for the live stream. Thank you so much, Jillian. You are awesome. All right, guys. And real quick, just want to give a big shout out to those of you who showed up early in the chat. We have Wendy Hunter, Nina, Danny's mom, Penny, No Money G. Good to see you guys. Of course, Anthony Mark is always here. Thrasher 613, Mr. Farnsworth, Potro A Station, whatever that is. Sorry, I know I butchered that one. And of course, Joker's Voice and Mexican Iron Man, Cocho Dragon, Dustin Neely. Guys, thank you all so much for being here very early. I know a lot of other chatters have come in, but we need to get started, guys, because there's lots to talk about, and we want to get to as much of it as possible. And we're going to start off with a very interesting thing. I want to get Odin's take on this, which is Disney has basically officially announced that Marvel's was a flop. And I can't wait to dive into this a little bit more. But if we check out our friends over at Screen Rant, basically the Marvels topped out at $170 million at the box office. That is domestic and worldwide, and breaks the MCU's 15-year record in terms of like lowest grossing movie. So it used to be The Incredible Hulk, which technically wasn't really an MCU movie, but then the Marvels came around and took that crown. And essentially, Disney has said that they're no longer going to be reporting box office numbers. And this is after a monumental 78% drop in its second weekend in theaters. So, Odin, you are our box office translator here on the Salty Saturday podcast. What's your take on the Marvels?
Well, the whole story keeps on frustrating me because and it's not anyone who's covering the story's fault. It's the headline's fault, right? They keep saying like the Marvels ends run with worst ever, and it's like it's still going. It's still in theaters. In fact, they actually just reported, or at least someone reported. I think that's the key difference, is that they may not be officially reporting certain numbers anymore, but there are still numbers that are being reported, if that makes sense. So the numbers is reporting, for instance, that the movie made $335,000, and that was on its most recent Friday showing, and it's only at 1,700 screens. So the fact that it's been out for a little less than a month and it's already been cut from well over half its theaters is really bad, right? That that's the thing we take away, is that one, it's showing us how bad it is, but two, the film is not done. It's still making money. It will probably creep up over $200 million before everything is said and done. But also, I think that the comparison between this and the Hulk really needs to be stated. When you do not adjust anything for inflation, The Incredible Hulk, as the former lowest grossing film in the MCU, any Marvel film that was at least connected in some way, was $265 million worldwide. So this movie, even when you don't adjust for inflation, is going to be ending a good 60+ million less than what the Hulk did back in 2008. Like that's how abysmal this is doing. You add to the fact that right now the Incredible Hulk's international number at 130 back in 2008. Think about how many more markets we're in today, how much more vast the MCU, the Marvel brand is in today's world, and yet the Incredible Hulk actually on paper will have made more than the Marvels did. I mean, in both markets. So it's not even just that one's doing better than the other, and that's what's making up the difference between the two. It's just bad, and there's just no other way to say it. And it's funny because between it and the Hulk, it beat the Hulk one day, and it was its first Friday. And ever since then, unadjusted numbers, by the way, unadjusted, has lost every single day to the Incredible Hulk from 2008.
Interesting. So Blaine, I just hopped over to Criticless. And for the Marvels, the audience score has it at decent, and my Friends with Benefits has it at rad. I wonder
That's
who
my
that friend
fault.
benefit is.
I'm sorry, that's my fault. That if you read my review, it's an aggregation of my daughter's 100 and my score. So
Right
we
on.
yeah.
But you know, for everyone who wants to read these reviews, you can go check it out over here on Criticless. But overall, it seems like a fairly positive review from the audience score. I mean, we're not saying the movie's bad,
Yeah.
but I wanted to get your take on why you think the Marvels just failed to perform at the box office.
Yeah, I mean, well, for one, I'm sure word of mouth was simply just that it was a mess. Because I mean, this movie was edited, chopped all up. Just, I don't know what this started out as, but clearly what they released, they were trying to fix something because it's cut to pieces. So, I mean, I'm sure word of mouth doesn't, that's not going to help things. But also, I mean, they just keep focusing on characters that a lot of people aren't super interested in. And Captain Marvel, with the whole stigma of Brie Larson and the crapping on fans situation. And we've got an issue right now where these studios think that the number one rule is to not listen to the fans. And every time these studios do it, it blows up in their face. And I think that that's currently also what we are seeing. It's, the famously dubbed MCU. And I think it is just an ever going effect that we are going to continue to see if they keep doubling down on focusing on these characters and stuff that people aren't really interested in.
Yeah. So Brian, you're kind of our superhero aficionado when it comes to superhero movies. What's your take on this absolute failure at the box office for the Marvels and the future of the MCU going forward?
I think the future is looking pretty grim. And it is. And even the stuff that's coming out, like the only thing interesting for Marvel right now is coming out of Sony, and even that is like, like, is anyone here on the panel, anyone in the chat actually interested in what's going to happen for the next, aside from Deadpool? Like, take Deadpool out of your mind. Anything besides Deadpool, are you interested whatsoever in MCU content?
Only because I get to report on how much money it loses. So
right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm actually interested in the Fantastic Four simply because I've always been a fan of the comic, and I don't feel they've ever done a good Fantastic Four movie.
And I'm right there with you, but like, considering their track record, I don't know how this next one's going to go either, especially considering it's a Sue Storm centered story, which is like such a weird thing to me.
Well, if they get a hot enough Sue Storm, I'll be there for it.
That's true. Yeah. I can forgive a lot if the actual actress is just super hot. As far as MCU goes, not interested. What I am interested in is Superman Legacy in 2025. I'm interested in, it's not Marvel, but it's superhero. I'm interested in Deadpool. I think that they have an interesting opportunity here to actually do the Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe storyline, and it would be so fitting, and that would buy a lot of goodwill for fans, especially like hardcore comic book fans, if they actually did some version of that, because it would be almost self-inflective. And that's it. I'm just not interested in anything else. Like, you tell me that some new youth Avengers thing is coming out, a Young Avengers, and I'm just don't give a shit.
The all-female Young Avengers, yes.
Right, all-female Young Avengers. I'm like, say more about shit I don't like. I don't want to watch. Like I just don't care.
Yeah, it's rough. But Alex, so Bob Iger recently came out to address why he thinks the Marvels underperformed, and he basically said it was shot during COVID. There wasn't any studio oversight like there should have been. And then in addition to that, all the Disney spin people are saying that the audience is overly misogynistic and they didn't turn out for a female-led cast, not superhero cast, because there were too many women in the cast. What's your take on that?
Yeah, sure. Blame your fans again. See how that goes. I think that whole idea that, like, oh, it's because it's got a female in it, no guys want to show up. That's probably the opposite of what is true. If you put a good-looking chick in a dope movie, we're all gonna flock to it. Be like, oh my god, you see that latest Lara Croft movie? It was freaking awesome. Like, or they did a reboot with Ridley from Aliens, and it's freaking awesome. Like, there's plenty of female characters out there that we would line up in front of the box office to go see. That is a nonsense excuse. The COVID thing, maybe. The studio oversight, since when has that gone well for them? Except for firing directors halfway through and then restarting the project. That, yeah, sure, do that again. I think it's just what you guys have already said. It's just uninterest. I think Endgame came out in 2009, and ever since then, it's been a steep decline in quality from Marvel. So I checked out after Endgame. I think I'm probably not the only one. I'm a casual comic book fan. I love movies more than I love comics, so I show up to those movies because I love movies. Hardcore comic fans are probably more upset about it than I am, but my question is, was anybody surprised that this? I don't even think Brie Larson was surprised that this movie flopped. Like, nobody expected this thing to do good. So I'm just kind of like, yeah, what's the big hubbub about? Yeah, it failed. We kind of saw the writing on the wall for that one.
Well, people were also blaming the actors' strikes because the actors couldn't go out and promote the movie, but
that's probably a good thing.
Yeah,
Right.
the fans have been saying like that actually probably helped it. It probably would have made less money if Brie
Right.
Larson was out there trying to push this movie.
And that was already disproven too, because like there was some
Right.
other big like box office person who was saying that, and so I'm like, all right, well, we'll have had a week where this was over up until the opening of Hunger Games. Let's see what happens. And guess what? All the projections, it came towards the bottom end, so it didn't do anything. It didn't move the needle really at all, or at least as any foreseeable fashion. So I think that to me proved, okay, actors don't sell movies anymore. That's now clearly stated, and we now have proof that that's the case.
Didn't Barbie
Well,
come out during the strike?
Barbie
did it
and
not?
Oppenheimer.
Right. Say Barbenheimer
it's
came
just
out, I felt long before.
It came out in
did
the
it?
summer when it just started, but I don't think that I don't think you can argue that the actor strike had any effect on that, because those were movies that people were so hyped for to begin with that they showed up in droves for them. But I want to throw this to the panel. So basically, what Bob Iger is saying is that in a superhero movie that is directed by a female person of color, it failed because the white studio executives weren't there enough to tell her what not to do. What do you think of that? Is that a good defense?
Oh, God.
Lean into it harder. Lean into
Right.
it even harder. We
God,
should have
and I
been
mean,
telling
they
those
hired
women
you.
what to do since the beginning.
I think my favorite part of all of this too, with everything with the Marvels, is that it's so clear that that Bob Iger is essentially saying that the director of the Marvels is incompetent. Like, again, it's like, oh, well, we didn't have any producers there like we normally do to keep our directors in check. And it's like, oh, the same woman that you have been promoting for being a woman, being a person of color, had the most money ever given to them. And, oh, wait a minute, they actually can't do it on their own. Like, that's not a very good image there, Mr. Iger.
Yes, but he, of course, just seems tone deaf to the whole thing as usual. But real quick, we got 2 super chats to get to. We have No Money G for $10. Any new decent movie is being overpraised, and rightly so, with all the garbage being put out. Mediocre is now a must-see. Yes, everything that Hollywood's putting out is so bad that even a mediocre foreign film feels like an amazing movie, right? It's just like something that, oh my God, it's so good because there's no politics. It's just about the story and about the characters. It's very true. So I think in comparison to everything that we've been getting from Hollywood this year, when a movie comes out that's just fundamentally like a good story, like solid story, like whatever, even if it's a mid movie, you're just like, oh, thank God. Anyone disagree with that?
No.
No, I think that's very accurate.
I would only disagree if you think that Godzilla -1 fits that bill, because it's amazing, no matter what you say.
Godzilla -1 was a good movie. I'm just saying that the praise it's been getting was a little bit much. A little bit much. All right. And Hugh Heaton for 20 Canadian dollars. Disney's biggest problem is that people just don't care anymore about the content they make. Shut it down and start over. What do you guys think about that tactic?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, you could, but you can't do it right away. You would have to wait a decade.
Yeah, it's going to be a while. Like, if Marvel wants to just cool its jets, like what Iger said something about pulling back on the content they make for the next couple of years, just pull back on Marvel, don't do anything for a decade, and then restart it all again and go back to what the formula works. You know, put your main characters in there, make awesome stories with these action-packed characters, and go forward with that. It's at this point, it's the only way to go, I think.
It's a tough one though, right? Because you have so many productions that are, because it takes so long to make a movie these days, it's a question of, okay, can they even stop a lot of the projects they have? Then you think about like the contracts that they have with these directors and writers, right? So if they delay them, do they lose them? Do they have to also pay them money? And the chances of getting them down the line, it becomes basically this giant cluster, right? And again, this is something that they've made for themselves. So obviously it's like, okay, you either can keep making these movies and spending more money and continue losing more money, or you could maybe be like, okay, it's going to be very painful for us at first to stop this, but we kind of need to do it to protect us in the long run.
Well, I want to just hit up Brian's thoughts about this one thing real quick before we move on to our next topic, which is, I don't know if you guys have noticed or not, but Warner Brothers Discovery basically licensed all their DC Comics stuff to Netflix. And so now you can't find it on Max anymore. But if you go over to Netflix, you can find every single DC movie ever made, especially the new stuff. Brian, do you think that was a wise decision on Warner Brothers' part?
Well, it makes it a lot easier to steal with Keep Streams and other tools. But no, that was a horrible decision. I don't know why they would do that. Unless Netflix gave them just a ridiculous amount of money, it makes no sense to take from your own streaming service and give like some of your most popular content to your competition. Like,
you know what I think?
Here's the entire DCU, but you can watch Naked and Afraid season 3. The fuck, I don't get it.
What you know what I think it might be is that they're offloading all the pre-James Gunn stuff, and the James Gunn stuff is going to be exclusive to Max, and they're trying to basically double dip with the current DC slate, because Netflix is paying licensing fees out the ass for that stuff, and they'd already kind of run the gamut on the Max platform. So I'm guessing that's what their rationale is. But
I guess that makes sense. But I mean, some of the stuff in the past DCU is supposed to be part of the new DCU. So there's gonna be things.
I think they had
Max
said
missing.
I think they had said that almost none of it is, I think, except for maybe because they even with the new Blue Beetle movie, they said only the character was coming over, not even the movie was canon in itself. So it's
really?
like they're almost.
I mean, we know for a fact that John Cena as Peacemaker is in the new DCU, and the Peacemaker series right now is at Netflix. We know
it
for
is.
a fact
They didn't
that
keep that.
No, Peacemaker's at Netflix. The newest the Suicide Squad, not to be confused with Suicide Squad, Jesus Christ, is also at Netflix, and that is at least several of those characters are part of the new DCU according to James Gunn. So I don't know.
It's a bad move as far as just their continuity and stuff. It also just decreases the value of the Max brand, because it's like, wait, if Max is not the place to go for DC content, was kind of the purpose of even going here in the first place. But it's a smart move financially, because they maybe just need the money because they've had a lot of big losers to the box office, especially this year. And so Netflix is willing to usually spend a lot of money. So, hey, why not?
Hey, why not? And we've got a $5 super chat from the man himself, William Forbus. Happy Saturday, SMB. I won't be in the chat often today, but I am listening with one earbud at work. Look forward to this awesome panel. Welcome, Alex. And yes, we know that since Matt Vader is not here, William Forbus is just like, fuck this show, right?
I'm a poor substitute for Matt Vader.
Yes. But it is funny. We have the Alex, and then we have discount Alex in terms of Blaine Andrews showing up.
Right. Yeah, I'm the Wish version, as I was described 2 weeks ago.
You're the Skeet Ulrich to Alex's Johnny Depp. So
perfect. Hey, dude, I'll be Skeet all day, man. He's
Skeet.
top tier.
All right, guys. So speaking of superheroes, let's talk a little bit about something that just went crazy on the internet lately, which is the based comic book guy. Now, I don't know if you guys actually saw. Yeah, I don't know if you guys actually saw this unfold, but there was a comic book store owner. His name's Glenn O'Leary, and he runs the Comics Palace in Massachusetts. And he has like a small YouTube channel where he just kind of posts stuff, but he posted this one thing that somebody clipped and went viral. And by the way, links are in the description. This is a minute long, but I don't want to play it just for like copyright issues and stuff like that. But you can check this out. It's a minute long, and he basically, as a comic book store owner, he goes through why comics aren't selling from the big two, right? The Marvel and DC. And his analysis of this was very spot on. He basically just said, like, look, you're writing a bunch of crap that nobody wants to read. And and then the lefties came out in force and basically said, how dare you, you're racist, sexist, misogynist, blah blah blah. And one of the interesting things that really blew this up is that you had Mark Millar, who is like a huge guy in the comics industry. Like he created Kick-Ass. He'd done runs on very popular characters. He's a really good comic book writer, and a lot of his stuff has been turned into feature films, like I believe what was called Wanted with Angelina Jolie and stuff like that. So he actually reached out to this guy and had him on his YouTube channel and interviewed him about the fallout of this video and why he talked about this specific topic. And then, of course, one of our favorite indie comic book artists, Ethan Van Sciver, hopped on this, and he was like, props to Mark Millar for coming out publicly and supporting this guy, and props to this dude because he basically said what we've been saying for so long. And then Ethan Van Sciver, of course, got dogpiled on by all the SJWs on Twitter, or I should say Twix, and he basically made a big video, also linked in the description, basically calling these people out and telling them how stupid they are. But this is kind of like a microcosm of the big debate about the comic book industry as it is right now, which is basically the big two, Marvel and DC, are hiring all these activists to destroy their top characters, make it so that the fans don't want to watch it. And the fans are like, hey, is our comic books dead? Should we go to the indie route, or should we just give up on our passions altogether and find a new hobby? And so this was something that I thought was really interesting, because you basically have the people who are on the front lines, the comic book store owners, telling the comic book industry what's wrong, and then the fans like slapping back at them and saying like, hey, this is all BS. Like, you guys are just racist, sexist, homophobes, like whatever. So Alex, what's your take on this whole thing?
I think the reason why it's taking off is because he's putting a mirror in front of everything that everybody has said, like from Gary from Nerdrotic or EVS, all these guys. This is what they've been saying for years now. And this guy just, a comic book store owner, he's in the industry. He sees the sales. He's probably losing profits by having these trash comics on his shelves. He just says what everybody's been saying, and it just was the right place, the right time. And people dogpiled on him because it's probably true. And they get mad when things are said to their face that are true. They just get real upset about it. So, I mean, it's the same as like when Matt Walsh said, "What is a woman?" It's like, it's nothing controversial. It's like, hey man, you are a dude. You can't fake it out. It's the same thing. It's like, it's nothing crazy, weird. It's just truth. And when you say truth to somebody who doesn't want to believe it, they freak out. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, a lot of these people who basically started giving the comic book store guy death threats and trying to get him canceled and leading the charge for the cancel culture thing, a lot of people believe that this was like an AstroTurf thing, where like, again, it's, you have the comic book companies that have these bot farms that try to get people canceled when they start saying stuff that they don't like. But the interesting thing here is that Mark Millar, who has a lot of sway in the industry, a big fan base, he basically came out and supported this guy and said, yeah, like, this guy is what he's saying is correct. And it's not about the isms, it's just about simple economics. And if you watch the full interview that Mark Millar did with this guy, it's very interesting the different paths they go down, because it's all about like, look, I'm a comic fan, you're a comic fan, and the comics aren't giving us, the fans, what we want. Right. So like, you can have the cancel mob out there indignant about what the guy said, but they're not the ones buying comics.
Right. It's fascinating how how tolerant these tolerant people are. Drives me nuts every single time. I like what Alex said. Like, there's facts, and you can be mad at the truth, but there's no such thing as your truth. That is a made up human thing. There is only the truth, not your truth, not my truth. All that's bullshit. Those are just shadows of the actual facts. And the facts are that the industry is dying, and it's because they've abandoned their fans and they're pushing an agenda. They're trying to groom the next generation, which means that in order to do that, they've had to abandon the current generation, the people that are actually buying things. And I feel sorry for this comic book guy because, I mean, he's owned a comic book shop for 30 years, right?
Mhm.
I mean, the guy is probably struggling. Like, consider this: like you've owned a shop for 30 years, and you are not selling comic books. You are struggling, and you got to put food on the table. You got to pay your rent. You got to pay your employees. And this guy can't even sell a comic book because everything has been swapped and gendered and changed, and they're preaching all of their insane ideology. And all the original comic book fans are like, look, I just want to read a book about Tony Stark. Does it have to instead be about some 16-year-old prodigy from Compton? Like, I don't understand. I want to read a book about Tony Stark. If you would like to create new characters, then go for it. But don't be mad when they don't sell because you're pushing an agenda. When they don't sell, don't go, well, this is not selling, so let's try to hijack a popular character that people have been reading for 40 years, and we'll just force the audience to enjoy this. Meanwhile, you think that you're getting the next generation of fans, but they're not even paying attention, because how does fandom work? The previous generation usually introduces the next generation to that fandom, and as it evolves, it creates a new fandom. Doctor Who, Star Trek, everyone has their best version of, what's your favorite Star Trek? My dad and my older brother, their favorite Star Trek is TOS. I enjoy TOS. My favorite Star Trek isn't TOS. It's probably up, it's like probably Voyager or TNG. Because that's when I started watching, and my kids are like, Strange New Worlds is great. And I'm like, fuck. But you know what? They like it because they're singing and dancing and shit. The whole point is, the reason they watched it, though, is because I watched it. The point of the next generation is learning from the previous generation and enjoying the fandom or the franchise as it evolves. Making a drastic change that's so drastic that your current generation of fans are like, oh, screw this, means that you're never going to get the next generation. You're not going to get them because you've abandoned your original fan base, and they're not going to train the next fan base. I'm telling you right now, my kids don't want to watch Ironheart or read Ironheart. They don't care. Even them, my kids are 12 years old. What they watched was Tony Stark dying to save the universe. So they want to see a Tony Stark book, cartoon, comic book. This Ironheart character, they more than not care for it. They actually detest it because it's replacing one of their favorite characters. It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Yeah, and speaking of not making sense, Blaine, Marvel. No, not that you don't make sense. I'm saying that.
That segue, though,
That was a hard
Speaking
segue.
of idiots.
No.
Speaking of idiots.
So Marvel has this big, rich history of very interesting stories. But for the MCU, what they chose to do after Endgame was skip the vast majority of that and go right to the current crop of modern day woke storylines to incorporate into their movies, all based off of this like nonsense source material that has proven not to sell. Like, we just got finished talking about the Marvels, and like if you look at the source material, like the Kamala Khan Miss Marvel stuff has been canceled numerous times. Same thing with the Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers version. It's been like redone, and it's just like, no matter how hard they push it, people don't care. And then of course, like Maria Rambeau, like nobody knows who the hell she is, like this photon character, like unless you watched WandaVision, it's just like, who is this? But like they have the proof in the numbers where like the modern stuff, like the fans just aren't responding to, and yet they're like, hey, why don't we take this stuff and make them into our next phase of movies? And then they wonder why it fails. So what do you think is the strategy here, where basically Marvel and DC have all these great stories to pull from, but they're choosing to ignore them in terms of like the more modern day crop of storytelling?
Right. Yeah. I have absolutely no idea what the strategy is, because you would think they'd look at the comics and see these comics aren't succeeding. Therefore, it's probably also not going to work on the screen, which is a lot larger audience. And it kind of points to the whole larger agenda of what Disney as a whole and these larger companies, whether it be, Warner or whoever, they seem to be so hyper focused on all this ESG stuff that they're not actually concerned about the quality of the stuff that they're putting out. And I think Brian hit on it perfectly, as well as the comic book guy, is that it is about this kind of lineage of being able to teach people and or your kids and your family to pass down what you're interested in, right? Because I mean, I've got these stacks and stacks of comic books and my kids love them, but I don't buy them anymore because, like in that interview that you were talking about, the big two, Marvel and DC, are what sells, and they're going to crush not only the comic industry but the comic book movie industry that somehow found success when none of us thought it was possible, right? Like, we did not think this was going to happen. 10-year-old me would have never thought we would have gotten to a point where we were having connected movies and the Avengers and all of these things. And it's like, you have this tried and true thing that worked for what, like 10 years or more with the MCU. And now and at the exact same time that was going on, they were torpedoing the comics. And so comic sales were going up or going down. The MCU was going up. And you'd think that they would look at these numbers, and which to me almost speaks to what is going on internally in these companies, which is that they are trying to push, like I said, like the ESG stuff. There's some sort of outside force who is incentivizing them for doing things that hurt their numbers, because there's no way that this is paying off at the end of the day. And so there's something that we're not getting the full narrative on that's happening internally within these companies, I think.
Yeah, and Odin, when you get down to the numbers and cents of this stuff, so, in the Mark Millar interview with this comic book shop guy, they talked about how there was a push a couple years back for digital comics, which ended up failing because comic book fans want an actual physical copy of the comic book, right? They don't just want to read it on their tablets and phones. And then Ethan Van Sciver in his video, he talks about how he's making so much doing the independent direct-to-consumer route that porting over Cyberfrog to a distribution to comic book stores, it just doesn't make any financial sense, at least at this point. He says that eventually he's probably going to have to do it. But as you have more like Eric July's and indie comic creators who just go direct to the consumer, they bypass the comic book stores, and then you have the actual comic book industry, the big two, who basically, they want to move away from traditional printed, materials. It's a bleak outlook for the comic book industry in general, simply because there is going to be no place where you can go and sit down and read comics and connect with other comic book nerds and stuff like that in the future. And it really does feel like especially Warner Brothers wants to basically just dump off their DC or comic book publishing arm, because it's not hugely profitable. So from a strictly dollars and cents point of view, what do you think about this strategy that the comic book companies have about continuing to put out material that fans don't want to buy so that they can further accelerate their eventual demise?
I mean, we're seeing the same strategy done in all different areas, right? We're seeing this done in the films. I think Disney is the prime example of that, right? They were able to slowly inject various themes and various ideas into their films, and over time, eventually, people have just given up on it, right? I mean, the fact that there's not a single arm of Disney, right, under the Disney brand itself, you could actually even extend this to 20th Century Studios as well, that is actually making any money, right? Like every single arm of their studio has lost money. The kids division, their teenage arm, right? Films that are geared towards teenage audiences, and anything that's geared towards adults. So I think that we're kind of seeing that in the film industry happen in that way too. I would say that when it comes to comics, though, I think that you might not in the future have a place for people to get mainstream comics in the same way as before. But I think you absolutely will still have physical locations. And it really goes back to the fact that what have we seen in the music industry, right? There was this huge movement towards CDs, and then eventually towards MP3s. And then what came out of that? There was the birth of the vinyl movement, right? There was this huge resurgence in vinyl. And now vinyl is still a very big thing in music communities. You look at comics, and I think you're starting to see that shift happen too, where they tried pushing digital and they were like, no, thank you. And so now it's all about physicality. So I think Rippaverse, especially more so than anyone else, I think Rippaverse is really going to be the one to kind of push, continue on with this understanding of physical media, right, being kind of the most important thing for the most hardcore fans. So it wouldn't surprise me to see like more independent shops open up, right, or in more independent locations, and be these new centralized, nerd hubs, as it were, whereas these more mainstream ones kind of go away. It's similar with movies. I'm hoping and praying that there comes a time very, very soon, because like that's the one medium, interestingly enough, that has not seen that same thing necessarily. Obviously, I'm a big physical media proponent. I have a huge physical media collection, but you also have a large number of people that are willing to just go to streaming services and digitalize, have the digital aspect of the platform. So I'm hoping that, especially as now studios like Disney and others have said they're getting out of the physical media business, that you start to see maybe the same movement we've seen with music, with comics, and hopefully with films in the future as well for physical media.
Yeah, what's interesting is that when I was a teenager and I would go to a comic book shop, literally the only thing that you could buy at a comic book shop were comic books. And nowadays, like I go into a comic book shop and it's mostly apparel, collectibles, games, toys, stuff like that. And the comic books are almost secondary. And you kind of saw this with the big book retailers as well, when bookstores were kind of like slowly dying. The ones that survived were the ones that pivoted to like coffee shops. They basically became coffee shops where like going for a coffee and then you'd sit around and maybe you read a book, or you see what's on the shelves or something like that. So they became like something other than what they were originally intended to be. And I'm thinking that as the comics industry continues to decline, these stores, in order to stay alive, are going to have to like pivot to something more to like what the bookstores did, where it's like, okay, we're going to have to serve pizza or coffee or something like that to keep people, to not only bring people in, but keep people there. And then like, hopefully they'll pick up like a comic book and read it and decide to buy it or something like that. So it's kind of interesting to kind of see like how this thing is going to develop. But in the Biden economy, like everything's just shit right now. And so like, it's got to get a lot worse before things are going to change around. But want to just let you guys know before we move on to our next topic that if you like our material, from aside from our review of Godzilla -1, and you want to be a part of our community, go and check out our Discord at saltynerdiscord.com. If you go to that website, it'll give you an invite for the Discord app to join our community over there. We have a very active community, a lot of fun stuff. And if you are a member, whether you get a gifted membership or not, you do get access to a special part of the Discord to talk about, members only things. But we're really trying to build our Discord community over there. And Alex is very active on Discord, whereas every other social media platform, like he's like seeing a Bigfoot sighting, like it's just not there. But we do watch parties, we do all types of stuff over there. So if you're not already there, it's free to join. You don't need to pay anything. Just head over to saltynerdiscord.com and check it out. And while you're doing that, also check out criticless.com. Not critic list, LIST. That's not where we're going.
No,
it does sound that way sometimes when we say that, though.
It does.
We're going to
buy that domain.
Yeah, I need to.
Yeah. criticless.com, Criticless. And you can also download the apps on all the major app stores. And it's free to use. And it's a fantastic way to keep track of not only the movies and TV shows that you watch, but your thoughts about them, and connect with other like-minded movie reviewers.
Like Alex, who uses the platform.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. It's a fantastic app.
And Salty Nerd has a group in there. So does Odin. I think Popcast does too. So our groups are, chugging along in there too.
Blaine, I wanted to ask you. Last time I checked, I've got like 80-something people in my group. Do I still hold the record for largest group?
No.
What do
You've been slacking, bro. You're slacking. Listen, everybody in the chat needs to step up, hop in the group, because Cody Leach, when he came in, man, he just like dropped the hammer. And I was gonna throw some shade, but we hadn't seen Alex in a while, and I was gonna let you know you were slipping, and you were dangerously close to a specific thing. You only, if you just push a little harder, you might achieve something.
All right. Back at it.
Speaking of which, I want to know who has the most badges, Alex or Odin?
Oh, it's definitely Alex.
Ooh, I think Alex does for sure, because his group I think has more and things of that nature. But yeah, I think he does. And I'm currently going for one that no one in the app has, and no one's picked up on me doing the weird crap that I'm doing. So I'm curious to see what'll happen with that badge.
All right.
Now I'm going to look furiously over all of your recent reviews to see what you have been doing.
Odin, you and I need to get together in our secret chat.
Yes,
and just
secret
map out. Yeah. There's only 3 people in it, and nobody else is allowed.
Right.
All right, guys. So we've talked about, the movie and TV industry. Let's talk about the gaming industry for a bit. In particular, Grand Theft Auto 6. Basically, the Grand Theft Auto 6 much anticipated trailer was dropped early because of a leak on TikTok. And Rockstar Games, they were very pissed off about the leak. And they're like, well, the trailer's ready. We might as well put it out there. And so they put it out there. And I gotta admit, this was a very good trailer. Like I loved it. I thought it was great. But there's this controversy that's been surrounding this game for a while now, and a lot of people weren't kind of like comforted by watching the trailer because they think like, oh, okay, this just kind of reinforced what we thought this was going to be. And over on Bloomberg, Jason Schreier, who's like one of the premier video game journalists out there. He's probably the only good one. Basically, he did a deep dive in the summer about Rockstar Games and how they've cleaned up their frat boy culture within the company, because they were coming under a lot of criticism about like being misogynists and insensitive and stuff like that, and that how this is going to affect the Grand Theft Auto 6 game. And basically, they said that in the past, where it was basically very even-handed in terms of like making fun of everything, now they're going to pull back on like making fun of like race and gender and basically all the woke kind of like hot button topics and stuff like that a lot of people had a lot of fun with in their crime simulator. And the interesting thing here is that Elon Musk even weighed in on this, where he basically came out and said like, I tried playing Grand Theft Auto 5. In the opening, you have to kill a bunch of police officers. I'm not really in favor of that, so I stopped playing. And so, like, there's all these kind of factors lining up against Grand Theft Auto 6, especially considering the fact that it's the first game in the franchise that has a female main playable character, and she's Latina or Latinx, or Latinx. Brian, how would you describe it?
Latwinks.
But it's funny because like the whole
what do you expect me to say? Seriously.
Yeah. The whole game takes place in basically Rockstar Games' version of Florida, and it just looks like bonkers, right? But they had one of their earlier games, Vice City. Vice City is part of this game, but you get more than the game. You get like the whole state to kind of play in, and a lot of Latinos are in Florida, and so it just made sense to incorporate that into the game. And it looks like the crux of the main story is going to be about a Bonnie and Clyde style couple, where it's a white dude and a Latina woman, and they run around committing crimes. And this is a crime simulator. So just based off of what I saw in the trailer, it doesn't look like they pulled back on much, because the trailer is pretty bonkers. But at the same time, a lot of fans are going through this trailer and they're like, oh, it looks like they're pulling back on this, or they're a little bit more sensitive to this stuff. And basically, in some of the articles I sent you guys in preparation for this segment, they even point out the fact that like, oh, all the misogynists are out in force to try and put down this game because it dares to have a female person of color as the main playable character. And so you can already see like, the typical kind of like defense mechanisms for everything woke kind of lining up to defend this game. And so the question becomes, is it going to be woke, or is it going to be like a typical Grand Theft Auto game? Now, Alex, I know that you are a big game player, but you tend to like stuff like Subnautica, shit like that. What's your take on Grand Theft Auto?
Shit like that.
Shit.
That's a good game, damn it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have played a little bit of GTA, but like you, it's not the game for me. It's not my genre that I like to kind of dive into. But in my opinion, just based off that trailer, which if you watch some other content online, it's almost a one-to-one, scene for scene, things that happen in the real world represented in the trailer. Like these moments where like people are riding on top of cars and alligators getting pulled out of pools. This is all news clips from Florida. So I don't subscribe to the idea that this is like outlandishly one way or another, left or right leaning. Doesn't I don't believe in all that stuff. And as far as I'm concerned, just based off of the trailer, this game is innocent until proven guilty. I didn't see anything woke about that trailer. I thought it was a really good trailer. In fact, the female character being the lead, okay, they haven't done that yet. You know, they've made this many games, and this is the first time that's happened. It doesn't necessarily mean it's woke. I do believe that the internal of this company is probably going to start getting skewed in that direction, just based off of public pressure from these crazy leftists who want to make sure everything's, you know, soft and easy and nobody gets offended. That's probably going to happen. It's probably going to be less offensive than some of the earlier versions, just because they want to cater to the culture. But I haven't seen anything yet that says it's woke. The protagonist looks cool. It looks like a Bonnie and Clyde type of situation here. She's got her boyfriend. At least she's not freaking, you know, part of the LGBT. I mean, she might be halfway through the game. I would say if there was two chicks running around town just doing things, and that was the crust of the game, I'd be like, okay, that's a pretty big red flag. But as of right now,
And one of them has a penis.
yeah. I haven't seen anything yet. If I'm later proven wrong, fine. But as of right now, no. This game looks like it's on point for most of the other stuff. Rockstar's got some solid stuff out there. I love Red Dead Redemption. Both 1 and 2 were amazing games. So if they just keep making good games, I really don't care who the main character is. That's kind of my take on it. I hope I'm not proven wrong, but if I am, so be it.
Yeah. Brian, so there was a game that came out before this. It was the Saints Row reboot, and Saints Row was basically like a Grand Theft Auto like copycat, right?
Yeah, or clone, right?
Yeah, clone. And when they decided to do the reboot, they hired this company to do it, and they went full woke with Saints Row reboot. And audiences and fans, by and large, just rejected this because they're like, it's not fun, it's stupid. And basically, like when you're driving around blowing stuff up, you would have these characters having conversations about pronouns and things of that nature. And so a lot of people are looking at this and they're like, is that what we can expect from Grand Theft Auto 6, where it's like, okay, a lot of the humor and satire and stuff like that we've come to love from Rockstar games is basically just going to be replaced by like woke messaging. Do you think that there's a danger that we're going to get that?
I mean, there's always in this day and age, there's always a possibility. I've been playing Grand Theft Auto since Grand Theft Auto 2. I have a Grand Theft Auto online account where I'm an actual billionaire, which is the exact opposite of my real life, where I'm very poor. The thing is, I'm right with Alex, dude. As long as the game has the same hallmarks and ideas that the previous games had, but with better graphic, maybe amp up the GTA style. I don't really care who the characters are. And as far as how woke things can be, I don't think you can base a game in Florida and go that woke. I just don't think you can. And if you look, someone put a video out. I have it here somewhere. I could probably play it. But basically, almost every frame of that trailer is a real life event that actually happened in Florida.
Yep.
Like, holy crap. You look at this game trailer, like, this is wild. This can't be real life. And then someone goes, here's real life. Like chick with 2 hammers, chick twerking on a car, alligator in the store, some guy in his yard naked smoking a cigarette. These are all, even the girl with the American flag bikini mudding. Like, that's an actual person. The guy with the skull tattoo on his face is an actual person. That trailer is not fiction. They went to Florida and they go, hey, what's the craziest fucking place on the planet? Okay, let's make a game about that. So if you think about that, how can you make it woke? They're already basing most of the stuff on real life anyways. Now, I guess one of the characters can be gay or can have a penis or something, I'm sure. But last time I checked, I'm not taking my pants off in the game, so I think I'm just gonna really enjoy the game. I'm hoping. Except my only problem is it's another Vice City. Like, I was hoping for a Vegas thing, to be honest. If I'm being real.
Oh, that would be cool.
Well, Odin, one of the interesting things about Grand Theft Auto being a crime simulator, it's basically like you can do anything you freaking want without consequences and stuff like that. And this idea that Rockstar is making a female main character. So in previous games, like you could go pick up a hooker, have sex with her, and then kill her and take your money back. Degenerate stuff like that, yeah. But with this one as a female main character, so
that's why I have 27,000 hours in Grand Theft Auto Online.
We're already seeing mods where basically you can make them naked, and so like you have a female main character who's basically running around naked the entire time. And then like you have the sexual aspect. It's like, well, if you're playing this character, you're going to have sex with like every single person that you meet, gay, straight, like whatever, it doesn't matter. And with the modding community, you just know that as being in control of a female character, they're going to go hog wild with this thing. So what do you think the implications are for having people play as a female in a game that basically has no morality associated with it?
Can I just say that's a messed up question to ask Odin?
I know, right? It's like
I just love that it goes through the Catholic. He's like, this is the question.
That's why I have to start this off by saying, first off, not a major gamer, and second, this game clearly was not made for me. So I'm gonna have my own thought. I'm the person where if they never made these kinds of games again, I'd be perfectly fine with that. At the same time, I could see why there would be a lot of people that would be drawn to them because there is that fantasy element that is also existing. It's fantasy within the kind of a real world, simulator in a certain respect. Better for people to be doing it in a game than in real life, I guess. But as far as like whether or not this game is gonna be as bad as some people think it has the potential to be, from what I've heard, for people who've watched like the trailer that they just released, didn't they just release something with regards to that? Mm-hmm. They said that it looked like it has some potential for it, and so it's concerning whenever any company says, "Oh yeah, we're taking care of stuff behind the scenes. We're taking care of that frat boy culture back behind the scenes." Because you're like, okay, so you're taking care of something that might have had an impact on the quality of the initial game. Maybe. Again, that's, I think, obviously up for debate of whether it was that specific element that was a part of it, or if it was just like a lot of creative minds that happen to, be for the most part of a certain, mindset. So really, it depends on, do they have good writers behind the scenes? Do they have good designers behind the scenes? And are they going to be able to actually put forward something that people want to play? So, even if there are some people maybe who are more of this, woke ideology that a lot of these companies have behind them these days, if you have enough people who are kind of a part of like the main actual development of the game, and I think that's usually the thing where I think the main developers of games tend to be more middle of the road, which is why I don't think you see too many games that are crazy woke, I guess you could say. Like there's definitely some that have those elements in it. I think we could definitely look to games like The Last of Us Part 2, but that has more to do with the writing of the story. I think it had more to do with Neil Cuckman, as he's well known as, versus the actual people behind the scenes actually coding it and actually doing all these other things. So yeah, I mean, hopefully it's one that, as long as fans are happy, right? I think that's the ultimate thing that most of us go by. But I will say this is a game that's not made for me, clearly, and so I don't care all that much. My perfect, monarchical society, I would say none of these games shall ever be played again. But again, that's just where I come from personally.
Well, Blaine, so one of the interesting things about Rockstar Games is like they take their time in development. There hasn't been a new Grand Theft Auto game in close to a decade. Right. And they've been focusing on their GTA Online stuff because that thing is like, licensed to print money, essentially. And with this new Grand Theft Auto 6, so like Rockstar really does take their times to try to do everything right. Everything from the trailer was like in-game footage. It wasn't like they generated stuff specifically for the trailer like a lot of other video game companies do. And with the release of Grand Theft Auto 6, there's going to be another I think, version of Grand Theft Auto Online. Brian, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but basically they'll have the old one still running, but then they'll have the new one going, kind of like how they did with Red Dead
I
Redemption.
don't think they're gonna do that actually.
Really?
Yeah, I think they're gonna. I think that if you buy, this is my thoughts. There's no actual facts for any of this, but judging on their past information and what they've done in the past, I believe that they're going to continue GTA Online. And if you buy Vice City, that's gonna be added as a destination to your online. There's they make $600 million a year on online. It'd be silly to turn that off.
Yeah, but so like the idea here is that Rockstar, over the course of a 10-year development cycle, like, will that allow them to kind of stick to what made them successful in the first place, or was that enough time to have the woke mind virus infiltrate it and adjust it? What do you think, Blaine?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely they've had time for it to take hold, without a doubt. Now, I kind of agree with Alex and Brian as far as I didn't pick up on anything in this trailer. I don't care. Like, I play as a woman, play as a man. Like, that's fine. These games now, they are sandboxes. They are these open world games, and I've played and beaten almost every one of these games, and also both Red Dead games. So I've been deep into this stuff for a long time too. And I mean, the biggest thing with these though is that with it being an RPG game, they give you the characters are chosen for you unless you're playing on Red Dead Online. So the main story is going to be interesting in how they inject this stuff, and if they do, where we might have a situation where it was kind of like the recent Spider-Man game where there's like these side quests that you don't have to do, and some of the stuff is injected and kind of hidden over in there, and it might be hidden in other little places. But that's the thing with these sandboxes is if this stuff is in the game and injected in there, if they make it something that is avoidable or that's not just like hammered into the main storyline, then whatever, I guess. But and also in a game like this, it's kind of hard to talk about in regards to, like, with the Spider-Man game. My son was playing it, and there was some of that stuff injected into it, and I was like, he told me about some of the stuff he saw, and I was like, yeah, that's in there, that kind of thing. But with GTA, like, if your kids are playing GTA at a young age, like, there's probably bigger problems to be had for subjecting them to this stuff, right? So it's going to be us adults that are going to be having this stuff shoved to us versus kids. And so my opinion on that is also a little bit different, and whether it's avoidable or not. But I think that there's definitely the possibility. Also, over the past couple of years, it has been shown, some stuff people have been sending out screenshots and stuff where there has been some virtue signaling happening from within Rockstar Games. As far as I think they literally shut off servers during the George Floyd stuff, if I'm not mistaken, for like a day. There are other things that have happened within that studio since that first game came out. And I mean, my daughter is almost 10 years old, and I remember trying to beat this game as fast as possible before she was born. So that shows how long it's been since a GTA game's come out. So I have been, it's been a long time. So who knows what has happened within that studio as far as the people that they have hired and brought in, whether it be management and people creating it. And there are so many fingers in this thing that you could probably sneak in just about whatever. So my guess is there will be some stuff, but as to if it affects the overall experience is a whole nother question entirely.
Indeed. We got a super chat from Mr. Tickle Trunk for $2 Canadian. Grand Theft Auto 6 might have 2 main characters. Grand Theft Auto 5 had 3. Yeah, you're definitely going to be able to play as the Clyde character. Like, I think the main character is the woman, and then like her boyfriend is like the other character. And there could be more characters added at a later date that you can play through storyline stuff with. But like Brian said, like, the Grand Theft Auto Online makes so much money every year that the real thing is going to be, in addition to all like the sales that the game racks up, how many new people are pushed into that, and how many new like upgrades and stuff like that people in Grand Theft Auto Online are going to be exposed to. It should be interesting to see, because they could be making, I don't know, $1 billion a year instead of $400-500 million a year.
Right.
Yeah. The only way for them to flop really with this release would be if they decide to start putting, if there is anything woke in it, if they start trying to push that into the online experience, then that's when you would see, I think, the kind of this massive cascade, this just massive loss of life, as it were, for the entire community.
I'm actually surprised at how big Grand Theft Auto Online is. Because I never got Grand Theft Auto 5. I was never part of the Grand Theft Auto online thing, but apparently it's huge, right, Brian?
I'm sorry, what was that? Say it again.
The Grand Theft Auto online is huge, right?
Yeah, it's huge. They made $600 million last year. They have more active users than most games that have, months to their years. There's no reason why they would shut that down. Someone did suggest that maybe they sell another GTA on, GTO along with 6. But if you remember, GTA 5 was actually like online was included with it. So when you bought it, it was included. So like it wasn't like an additional cost, it wasn't a DLC or whatever. So it makes more sense where if you have access to 6, then your Grand Theft Auto Online account will be updated and you'll have access to that map. Like you'll have access to that, section of the map. And then going forward, every GTA game they make, they can just add that section to your account with whatever, city or whatever they're emulating. That's the only way. That's the way to go.
Yep.
And other studios have done that too. That move a lot faster, because they move so slow.
Yeah, they do take their time, which is why you're pretty confident that when you buy a Grand Theft Auto game, it's going to be quality. It's going to be good.
Yeah, and dude, Red Dead 2 is an outstanding game. Like outstanding.
Yeah.
My only problem is that it takes a long time to get anywhere, and I don't want to spend an hour of my 2 hours off watching like horse.
Yeah, the horse testicle physics in that game are next level.
Yeah,
it's really amazing.
It's like sitting there watching the horse testicles move back and forth while I'm trying to get to to the saloon. I'm like, come on. I know they have fast travel, but fast travel is sort of weak in that game too. So
see, I'm playing the new Avatar game just because I wanted to see if it was bad or not. I want some testicle physics in that. I want some big blue balls. Just
is there a new
nobody wants blue balls, Blaine. Nobody wants blue balls.
God, I hate Avatar so much.
Real quick,
crappy franchise.
Jonas J. Campbell for $4.99. Is current Grand Theft Auto more than just a bunch of mediocre game mechanics chained together as open world and being filthy? I haven't played since San Andreas. No. I can tell you, like, I played Grand Theft Auto 4, and it was not a mediocre game. Like,
no.
It's truly like a choose your own adventure thing, but like everything it's fun, right? It's just fun.
Yeah, GTO, there is so much to do in that. Okay, so I'm the kind of person who completely ignores all the storylines. Every time you get a call from one of your dealer, the car guy, whatever, you have a phone book full of people that will just give you random adventures and missions. Every time I get a call, I'm like, ignore that shit. and I pop into my DeLorean, aka my flying car. I think it's called a Deluxo or something. And then I activate rockets and I fly into the air and I just look for other players to blow up. That's what I do. After I've now amassed an empire of like 12 companies, as many apartments as you can afford, houses, bunkers. I have everything you can possibly have in that game, and I still go in there just to blow up other players, and it's great. it's really phenomenal. I'll have the entire server mad at me. It'll be. I'm running from cops. I'm running from players. They're fighting each other. It's great. It's a good time. And let's say you actually like story. Literally every time I log in, I'm getting a call from some guy. Hey, Detective Reyes here. I want to talk to you about the car. And call. So there's always something to do. Always. You can follow the storyline. And every DLC patch is like, oh, we added casinos. We added this. We added this. It's a good game. It's well worth like the $60 I spent 10 years ago.
Yeah. And if you guys haven't seen the Ryan Reynolds movie Free Guy, it's basically the movie version of Grand Theft Auto. And
that's what it is.
It's a good movie. It's fun. Definitely worth checking out.
Better than it had any right to be.
It really, yeah, you're 100% right.
All right. Speaking of things that shouldn't be as good as they are, let's talk a little bit about Doctor Who and how the new showrunner, Russell T. Davies, has come out and said that he intentionally means to piss off Doctor Who fans. So there's this article that came out in the Telegraph. It's been making its way around Twix. And basically it says, the new Doctor Who episodes will upset diehard fans, says Russell T. Davies. Showrunner says the series is taking slight steps towards fantasy, which may annoy those who see it as hard science fiction show. Now, if you actually go through and you read this full article, it doesn't make any mention of what they've already done to piss off fans. So basically, for those of you who are not up with Doctor Who, there was this big run before Russell T Davies came back with a female Doctor Who that by and large fans just hated. And the ratings got so bad that it was in danger of being canceled. And so they brought back the original showrunner who relaunched Doctor Who something like 20, 30 years ago. I forget how long ago it was. But Russell T Davies was supposed to be the savior of the franchise. And recently his specials have come out leading up to this Christmas special where they introduced the new Doctor. And he brought back David Tennant, who was one of the most popular doctors, but he also injected so much woke messaging and so much anti-male doctor stuff that fans were like, what the hell am I watching? And so the 2 episodes that they put out so far, number one, they made the most powerful Time Lord a trans woman. And they got rid of, they took a iconic villain who was wheelchair bound and had him walk again because Russell T Davies didn't want evil associated with people in wheelchairs.
Oh God!
And
if he just didn't say anything, no one would have cared.
Right.
Yeah, and then they made the David Tennant Doctor, who is a different version of the Doctor that he was originally, gay. So they've already done all this stuff, and then
I think that statement you just made is a little not as correct as like he said that guy is hot. I don't think he didn't say I'm gay.
But then he said, "Oh, is that what I am now? Must be." So it was a sly thing where it's like, okay, this version of the Doctor is gay, and I wouldn't be surprised if the new Doctor is gay as well.
No, the new Doctor is 100% gay.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
I haven't even seen it yet. Just looking at his photos, I'm like, yo, that guy is super gay. Like,
well, and his sex ed character very much was as well. So I had a feeling when they cast him that was the direction we were headed.
Yeah, look at that. I'm positive that the booth, the TARDIS is no longer gonna be blue. It's gonna be rainbow colored on the inside. There's like a disco ball. There's like a hairy guy in some BDSM outfit. That's his new companion. It's gonna be super gay.
But the point I'm trying to make here is that even before this article hit, Russell T Davies was intentionally doing stuff to piss off the hardcore fan base. And actually, if you guys go to this article, the link is in the description. The real gold is if you go to the comments of this article and you actually read some of the comments, and you get a sense of everyone who commented was like an actual Doctor Who fan, and none of them had anything good to say about everything up to this point. And so, the thing that Russell T Davies says is going to piss off hardcore Who fans is that he's going to take it into more of a fantasy version. But Doctor Who has always been science fiction fantasy. It's never been hard science fiction, right? So I'm not quite sure what his reasoning behind that is, but it brings us to a larger issue. And this is not something that's inherent with Doctor Who. This is Star Wars. This is Willow. This is Star Trek. This is everything, which is basically production companies in charge of these things, showrunners in charge of these things, specifically do things that fans don't want. And then they wonder why it's destroying the franchise. So Brian, give us your take on this. Do you think that it's smart for the guy in charge of the show to specifically doing things to intentionally antagonize the fans?
No. I don't imagine if you walked into let's say a Starbucks, right? And the minute, usually you walk in, they're like, hey, how you doing? Welcome, whatever. They're like, hey, get the f out of here. Imagine that. You'd be like, imagine if you were just constantly offended by the people you were giving your money to for coffee or whatever. I mean, that's the same concept with these TVs and these movies. These directors, these showrunners are constantly making it known that they have nothing but disdain for anyone that doesn't agree with whatever their agenda is. And my opinion is keep it out of the story. Or maybe just shut the F up. My God, if he just shut the F up, if he stopped talking about the wheelchair inclusive stuff or any of the hyper agenda driven stuff, most of the stuff would just fly by. Not all of it, to be fair, but most of it would. In fact, if he didn't try to defend the casting of Isaac Newton, it wouldn't have been as big of a deal as it had become. But instead, the guy's got to keep talking. He's got to keep defending his his grooming, his agenda-driven story. And the crazy thing is, I like the guy. Like, I think he's made some really good Doctor Who. I think he has good. And when it's just Doctor Who, when the story is just Doctor Who, like this last episode, last Saturday, it was pretty good. But for some reason, that first 5 minutes, I know we're going to tell a Doctor Who story, but first, we need to inject some bullshit into it. Like, give me 4 minutes of my weird pissing off the fans time, and then we do some Doctor Who. And I'm like, I don't get it. Just stop talking. Stop trying to defend bad ideas, and stop showing clear disdain for your customers. It makes no sense. Again, they think that we're all going to die out and the next generation is going to take over. Bro, it's not happening. It ain't happening because the current fans are either hating it or, even worse, becoming apathetic. And once they're apathetic, they stop talking about it. AKA Star Wars. Dude, every time you bring up Star Wars, I'm like, God, I don't want to talk about it. It actually annoys me that I have to talk about this stupid franchise that I have literally grown to not just hate, but not care about anymore. So the same thing happens with every single franchise. People stop caring about it. And once they stop caring, they are no longer going to promote it either via hate or love to the next generation. And the next generation is not going to watch. So you have Doctor Who that is doing the same thing. It started with the last Doctor. It's going to clearly continue into the next Doctor. And so you might get some fans, but it's going to be a tiny percentage of the new fans you capture will be a tiny percentage of the fans you had, and it's going to eventually die. And you're gonna literally end a franchise that has gone on for longer than most of its fans have been alive. It's crazy.
Yeah, Blaine, I want to ask you. So it's been announced basically that the next Star Wars movie we're going to get is going to be the Rey Skywalker one, right? Another example of taking character that nobody cares about, nobody wants, and then shoving it down our throats. And it feels like there's a lot of animosity where, like, studios basically just hate the fans, and they're like, why don't you like this? We're going to keep giving you this until you accept it and enjoy it. And fans are just like a lot like Brian, where they're just like, I'm checking out.
Enjoy it. You will like it. They're basically raping their fans. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
Why don't you like me?
Why don't you like me?
God. And I'm over here on Criticless, and I'm seeing that Doctor Who, by and large, a lot of people are giving it good ratings, right? Except when you get to the most current version, the Jodie Whittaker Doctor, and so it's kind of like the BBC is basically taking the same strategy as Lucasfilm has been, and they're getting the same results. Do you think that somebody might want to tell them, it's like, hey, maybe you should try doing something different and actually cater to the fans as opposed to giving them exactly what they don't want?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've all been telling them for how many years now? We don't even really ask for that much. It's just like, just quit deviating so hard from the thing that we loved. And they just keep doing it over and over again. And I mean, it's almost like a broken record at this point. Like, we just keep, it's every franchise, it's everything we love. I mean, I quit watching Doctor Who back after Matt Smith and never came back to it. And if I'm not mistaken, somebody was even saying that there was a BBC article that came out. I mean, this is a BBC show, and even the author of that article essentially just said, like, this show, it's too woke. Like, it jumped the shark. And I mean, I can't even bring myself to watch this. And that's what I was saying earlier.
When a
where
liberal
it's like,
journalist is like, yeah, we've gone too far.
Yeah. I can't even sit through this. This is so bad. And that's the thing. I mean, we've jettisoned good writing, good storytelling for just the message, the agenda. And it's just over and over and over in every franchise. And I'm right where Brian is, where, like, I just all of these things I love. I loved Doctor Who. I loved Star Wars. I loved Marvel. There's my whole life built up about it. I've never once talked to my kids about Doctor Who because of what it's become and what they're going to end up watching. I'm just like, whatever. I mean, maybe I'll go back and show them the old stuff, but the first thing I'm going to do is tell them, don't watch anything after Matt Smith. Just don't even bother. And it's kind of the same thing with the Star Wars movies, where it's like we even watch some of the new trilogy stuff, and they just don't care. And so, I mean,
Capaldi. He was not bad.
Who? Oh, Capaldi, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't watch any of his stuff just because people were already kind of crapping on it some, but I mean, it's just I really don't know. Their bottom dollar is obviously being affected, and the thing is that the critics as well, which is a big thing with me wanting to do Criticless, is that these critics are the ones egging this on. Like, you look at all of this woke trash, and critic after critic after critic is like, "Oh, this is the best thing ever. This is great." And I'm just like, there's no way that you think that. It's literally just because they're towing the line. They're saying and doing the things and pushing the agendas that you want them to push. And I literally read a Screen Rant. I think it was Slash Film article from this past week, and it was their hot takes of just all these crazy things that they think. And among the list of their hot takes was that creators and studios should never, ever listen to the fans. That was their hot take for Slash Film. So, I mean, that's where we are. The critics and these journalists are egging this stuff on. And apparently the studios aren't listening to us. They're listening to these people.
Yeah, we went from P.T. Barnum, who basically says give the audience what they want, to Hollywood saying, like, we will tell you what you want and you will accept it and like it.
You will like it.
Yeah.
Odin, you know, one of the interesting things about this new reboot of Doctor Who, where they brought on Russell T Davies to come back, is that this came in the wake of the previous series of Doctor Who with Jodie Whittaker. It was going to get canceled because the ratings were so bad. But then Disney came in and licensed out Doctor Who from the BBC. And so with this influx of Disney money, they decided to bring back Russell Davies and reboot it. And so what we're seeing here is basically Disney's Doctor Who. And it's basically doubling down on everything that Lucasfilm, Pixar, and Marvel is doing. Do you think that's a coincidence?
No, I don't. But I think we could also say that it's been kind of moving in this direction for a little while. One thing that I always find fascinating, though, about any type of TV show, especially whenever an evil site like Rotten Tomatoes is brought up, is the fact that critics are so clearly, bought and paid for to give their thoughts. And it was also interesting, though, is just how far Doctor Who has clearly fallen. So if you go to a show, and I think I brought this up on Friday Night Tights last night, where if you go to a show like the Rings of Power, and you look to the first episode and the number of reviews on that first episode, it was like well over 100 reviews. And then every episode after that, it goes down. But like, I think it was by the second or third, whichever one people did not get for free, did not get early access to, it went from like being in the hundreds to being in the 30s. So like critics just stopped watching it and stopped at least giving their thoughts on the actual show itself. I pulled up Doctor Who, this most recent one, and only 28 critic reviews for the first episode. And then by the second, 13. So not only do you have just a very, 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 very small number of critics even still watching it, but then even they, almost half of them, gave up on it by episode 2. So I look at this and I think to myself, like, even though you have these, critics giving it 100% fresh or Rotten Tomatoes, it's like, yeah, only 13 people are doing that,
right.
And that's why I cannot wait for Criticless to start to have the breakdown by like season and episode and all that stuff.
Well, and how many of those 13 critics actually represent what the rest of us think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and who chose them to be the voice for it? I mean, it's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, Alex, so a while back, you're not a Whovian. Vader wasn't a Whovian. Jude had never seen Doctor Who before. So a while back, we decided to spend a month doing Doctor Who reviews for our membership site, our Patreon. Mm-hmm. And I subjected you guys to my favorite Doctor Who episodes that I thought, number one, it was David Tennant, and he's my favorite Doctor. But they were also some of the best David Tennant episodes, and we didn't have to watch them in any particular order. But like I showed you guys the Christmas episode where he premiered, and the Angels episode and a bunch of other stuff. And that was your first exposure to Doctor Who, and it didn't really inspire you to continue down the Doctor Who path. Nor did it Vader, but Jude actually got super into it, which was cool. But based off of what you've seen of like Doctor Who when it was in its prime, and what you've heard about the Doctor Who that we're getting now, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Doctor Who, but I do appreciate the fandom that has grown with it for the past 60 years. I mean, that's a hell of a run. It's right up there with the OG Star Trek fans and stuff like that. And I see a lot of similarities between original, TNG and stuff like that in the Doctor Who franchise. Like, there's a lot of brings up ethical questions, doesn't tell you what to think. It just brings up the subject, and then the story kind of progresses along those lines. It's a great show. I don't have a problem with it. This whole situation is just rinse and repeat of everything that's been going on with every pop culture ever from the beginning, like of the last 10 years maybe or so, like that. Things are just progressively gotten worse and worse and worse. It's the same car crash. We're just going to watch it again. I feel bad for Whovians. The only thing that I really watched recently of it is Gary's video on the latest iteration and his breakdown out of it. And I'm just like, oh my gosh! And this guy's now saying like, I'm going to purposely piss off old school fans. I want to play that GIF of from Dodgeball where he's like, well, it's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out for him.
Bold move, Cotton.
This is not going to go well, guys. This is not going to go well.
As a wrench just hits him in the face.
Yeah. But Brian, I think Brian mentioned something pretty interesting about like generations, like who's going to be the next generation who watches this stuff. And it's funny because I've been watching a lot of not pop culture, but like just modern culture in the direction that it's going. And this generation that we're dealing with right now, who's in charge of all these things, these millennials, which I'm unfortunately a part of, are just like skewing this stuff hard to this woke ideology. But the generation after that, because that next generation always rebels against the generation before it, they are rebelling against this stuff. These kids are not going to watch this crap because I'm not going to be preached to. You see these things all the time with these crazy teachers in these high schools trying to teach all this nonsense. And that generation of kids is like, I don't have time for this crap. I'm bailing out of this class. You're an idiot. This is nonsense. Right.
And usually it's the generation that was watching it that slowly gets them into it. In the first place, they're going to rebel against whatever the current ideology is. Yeah,
they're going to this younger generation. I don't know what they call it now, Alpha or Gen Z.
Zoomers.
Zoomers. Yeah, they're going to rebel against this nonsense for the most part.
And they all have hair like this, where the hair is like really, for some reason, it's down and it's up at the same time. It's really hard to emulate.
The broccoli haircut.
Yeah, the broccoli hair that they have like vegetable hair.
It's weird, man.
I was asking my kids, I'm like, I'm sorry, my 12-year-old daughter. Do you think that boy is cute with that hair? And she's like, no. It's everywhere, and I don't know why they do it. It looks so weird.
Yeah, it's like a repeat of the Surfer Boy mushroom I had in high school. It's just like one step removed.
It's like they're wearing a hat and they took it off.
Alex, there was like a study done where people interviewed a great deal of Zoomers about the content, and they overwhelmingly said that they want less emphasis on sex and more emphasis on friendship and platonic relationships, because they're just being overwhelmed by these things. It's like, oh, like we're gonna have a lesbian orgy, like in this episode and stuff like that. And all the kids are like, hey, like I'm sick of this stuff. Can we just get back to like people being normal? And it's exactly as you said. It's like this next generation is already starting to rebel.
Yeah. So I think this is it's an unfortunate short-term reality that is just going to die out, and then we have to wade through it because we're old school fans. Like Brian's old school fan of Doctor Who. We're old school fans of Star Wars. We're wading through this crap right now, but eventually it's going to turn around because those kids are growing up and rejecting this stuff are going to be the ones who are making this content and be the ones who are becoming animators and storytellers, and they're going to get jobs, and they're like Ripaverse with his stuff and EVS. Like these guys are going to start doing this independent thing. I think there's going to be a new resurgence of like that 70s guerrilla style filmmaking that came out of like Scorsese and Spielberg and Lucas and all these guys. We're in the generation now where it's all corporate. And that's exactly what those old school directors were rebelling against. The old school Hollywood, they rebelled against that and did their own thing. And those are the most popular movies that we've grown up with from the 70s and 80s and stuff like that. Now we're in the next phase of this like corporate generation who's failing epically and then we're just waiting for those people to start taking up their own gigs, taking the iPhone with their 4K video capabilities and going and making their own movies. And it's a wave. It's a pendulum. It's a wave. Whatever you want to say it is. But yeah, we're in a shit moment right now. I think it's going to end probably in the next 10 to 15 years, and we're going to get back to some really, really good stuff that's made by independent creators or people who actually love good stories, and they'll be taking over these IPs and starting to make some good stuff. So hopefully, we'll see.
Well, we saw it with Talk to Me too recently, right? Like when Talk to Me came out, that was some YouTubers. Like these guys were essentially in the film industry nobodies, and it blew up, and it's doing great. And I think that, like you said, that guerrilla style, this kind of rebellion of the mainstream stuff, that's what we're seeing. It's already happening, I think.
Yeah. Talk to Me was pretty good. I think that Everything Everywhere All at Once was also from YouTubers. And that was like a very heavily critically praised movie that did very well. But speaking of franchises that have steadily declined over the years, Brian, get ready to react.
Let's talk about Star Wars.
Let's talk a little bit about Star Trek, and in particular, Star Trek Discovery. Sorry, that was the wrong one. So it came out recently in a Screen Rant article. Okay, I'm going to show you guys the article, link in the description. That's Sonequa Martin Green said at a recent panel that no one on the cast or crew of Star Trek Discovery had any idea that season 5 was going to be their final season. And that's just proof positive that they haven't been watching the Salty Saturday live stream, because I've been saying for years that they were only going to go 5 seasons because that's when the Netflix money ran out, right? So like I could have told them, I was like, Sonequa, darling, like you're only getting 5, right?
Yeah, talk down to her real hard. Yeah. Like, hey, baby doll, listen, you don't understand show business.
Yeah. That's
what Bob Iger says, right? Like,
let me mansplain to you for a second.
Yeah, let me explain to you how money works. Eh?
Listen here, toots.
But so like I've been saying, basically, for those of you who don't know, when they were relaunching Star Trek under CBS All Access at the time, it's now Paramount Plus, but when they were getting ready to relaunch Star Trek with the premiere of Star Trek Discovery, the reason they decided to do that was because Netflix had done a deal with CBS where they were like, hey, we want the foreign rights to a new Star Trek because that's going to help us grow a subscriber base. It's a big franchise, everyone loves it. And so they ponied up millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't know how much, but they ponied up enough where it made it worthwhile for CBS to resurrect Star Trek after the movies had kind of run their course. And so numerous times on this channel, we've gone through the economics of this and basically said, like, okay, that Netflix deal with CBS was enough to finance 5 seasons worth of Star Trek Discovery. So it didn't matter how bad or how stupid it got. It was guaranteed to get at least 5 seasons. And when it came down to it, when people announced, oh, season 5 is going to be the last season of Star Trek Discovery, I was like, yeah, we've been saying that the entire time.
For a long time.
For a long time. But beyond that, like if Star Trek Discovery had been good and had been actually pulling in the viewer numbers that Paramount Plus needed, they'd probably keep going with it. But there's a lot of stuff going on in the Star Trek realm right now where you have kind of like, I've been hearing rumors, I don't know how true they are, about Alex Kurtzman jumping ship, possibly stepping back, and Terry Matalas coming in, taking over, and with the success of Picard season 3 and all this other stuff. And you've already seen Paramount Plus kind of, cancel other stuff like Star Trek Prodigy and things like that, preparing for a new round of Star Trek, right? So I want to throw this to Brian because Brian's our Star Trek expert on the panel.
Expert.
What have you been hearing, and are you surprised at all that this terrible, horrible show only got 5 seasons?
No, I'm not. Yeah, well, no. I mean, I'm surprised in the sense where I'm like, at some point you'd think they would use all that free time to develop something that was entertaining at the very least, but they did not. As far as the rumors of Terry joining, taking over, I don't think that's happening. and I have a lot of information on that, so I don't give your hopes up on that. As far as Star Trek Legacy happening, not until these things fail. So it's what's crazy is in order for us to actually get a Terry Matalas led Star Trek Legacy, either we have to wait for Starfleet Academy to and Section 31 to end, or we have to wait for them to fail miserably. So either they're gonna run their course as mediocre television shows for 3 or 4 seasons, or they have to be so bad that they end in a season before, which means that like in order to get Star Trek Legacy, it's a minimum of like 5 years, and we got to go through like 5 years of Star Trek torture where you're going to lose more and more of your audience. So by the time you can actually get to Star Trek Legacy, which was bringing the audience back 100%, Terry's methods were bringing the audience back. By the time you can get back to that, if Terry is even still available, if they can still afford him, if he's not working on Amazon or something, if that can still happen, you've already lost another healthy chunk of your audience. And the people that were waiting for Terry Trek, that signed the petition, that are still sharing it every single day, those people are, by that time, will have given up. And you're gonna, so it's a losing strategy. There's a reason why I'm not talking about Star Trek on any of my channels anymore. By the way, how many views do I have for Star Trek? Millions and millions. You know why I'm not talking about anymore? Because I think it's dead.
Yeah, nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
It's gotten to that apathy point. And so Blaine, over on Criticless, now there's a caveat here. It's only one voter, but on Criticless, Star Trek Discovery is sitting at heinous 0% audience score. All right.
Yeesh. Was that
now,
you, Brian?
I actually think that
It might have been.
I actually think
the salty trekker.
Yeah, I actually think that this is an accurate score for this TV series, because what they did is season after season they just got progressively more and more woke. They brought on a non-binary character at one point, and everyone referring to them as they or them in the dialogue.
So
it was confusing. It sounded awkward. It was like, oh my God, what is this dialogue? And they just kept doubling down. They brought on Stacey Abrams as the president of Earth.
That's
of
right.
Earth.
Of Earth. Of the entire Earth.
Of the entire Earth.
Yeah.
A loser they brought on.
The best part, though, the part where I was like, this is officially like, it's gone beyond propaganda and it has to be someone effing trolling us, is when the ship was questioning its sanity and having trouble with its own identity because of the they them thing. The ship. You understand? It's the ship. The ship is having difficulty discovering its emotions and its own identity, and it had to see a therapist.
I'm afraid I can't allow that dead naming.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, there's no way. There's no way they don't know that like there's someone in that writing room is just straight trolling us.
Yeah.
Blaine, they just kept doubling down on the wokeness season after season. And then they're surprised when their ratings are so far in the toilet that after season 5, after the money runs out, that they're not being renewed.
Right. They're surprised.
Baffling. It
Here,
really is.
Ain't no more money.
Yeah.
That just proves how much of a bubble these people live in. Like, they are just so into their own little world. Nobody ever criticizes them. Nobody ever says that they're doing not a great job. Nothing. They're just like, they don't read reviews because the fans are idiots and they don't need to pay attention to them.
They're bigots.
Yeah, and then they just get slammed with, hey, by the way, this is your last season. You're like, wait, what? Why? Because all of this stuff, everything from the fans, everything from how much views you're getting, all the money that you're getting, like, there's so many signs, but they just refuse to look at them.
Right.
Like,
how do you expect to be paid? How do you expect to be paid?
Right.
I can see Sonequa Martin going like, what? I thought we were doing so well. Really?
It's like the human centipede.
Right.
They're just sucking each other's farts.
Right.
They're just like all day, just huffing farts from each
you look
other.
at the last
all
First
day.
Contact or whatever the contact Star Trek Day, like they're on the red carpet. Everyone's telling them how great they are. There's some like obvious, like the host was like a trans guy. He's like, or person or woman or whatever. I'm not even sure. And he's like, or she's like, or they're like, I don't know. I don't care. "Oh, Sonequa, you're so great in Discovery. How does it feel being the captain now?" And she's like, "Oh, it's so great. It's like a dream come true." And your mom like, these people don't know.
No.
That every
Yeah.
person watch, like, aside from like maybe 0.5%, 2% tops, are watching this, and they're either embarrassed, angry, or apathetic. And you think that you're doing a good job, which is crazy.
Brian, here in Vegas, we've gone to a couple of the Star Trek conventions here in recent times when the Discovery panel was there. The first couple of years that Discovery was on, there was more people than I expected waiting in line to get signatures and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, the next couple of years, we went and there was like nobody there. Everybody was lining up next to the TNG cast because Picard was out. Picard season 3 was coming out. Terry was, it was a huge hit, and you could tell based off of how many people were lining up to go talk to these people. That fandom has not gone away. Like, Star Trek fans loved the TNG cast.
Right.
The Discovery cast was just en masse getting ignored.
Yeah. When I was there, when you guys were doing the podcast live, which was cool, by the way, I remember going up to some of those tables too, and it was like Anson Mount had a massive people, line of people waiting for him, like huge. But every other one of those actors were just sort of sitting around, and they had the same vibe as the actors. Like, this had the same exact audience as the actors from like DS9, that's been off the air for decades. Like, they had the same amount of people waiting to see them as that one person who played the guy at the bar at Quarks. And they're a main character on Discovery. And you're like, clearly people don't really care about it. Like, there's a very small group of fans that actually like it. And maybe they're super vocal. And there's also the Star Trek fans, and this is a real group, that like anything Star Trek, period, the end. Anything. Yeah. If it has Star Trek on it, like, they'll watch it. There is still that group. And we have friends that are in that group, but they're like, well, I don't prefer Discovery over TNG, but I still liked it. And you're like, listen, if you like it, that's great. Like, I'm never going to criticize someone for being entertained or liking something. But I do believe that your standards might be pretty low, because if you like that, but then you also praise TNG, it's hard for me to be like, well, it's hard for me to see your opinion as anything more than rose-colored glasses. But that group still exists, and that's the group that will go to every single STLV. They'll try to get every single autograph for every single, even tangentially connected to a series, right? But the real, like, the hardcore fans, the ones that like complain about how Transporters needs a Heisenberg compensator to make sure someone doesn't blow up in space, those guys, right? The guys that are doing theory videos that are an hour and a half long about how Romulans created the Borg, Shane, those guys are like, this is not working for me anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I hadn't watched any Star Trek in years, and I came in Discovery, and actually I fairly liked the first like little bit of it. And then, like you said, with the progressive like just decline of the show, I bailed, like you said, when they started entering into the they them and all of those things. It was just like, I bailed. And then Picard came out, and I was like, I don't care, man. Like, and I mean, I watched Star Trek growing up as a kid. I've got a big Enterprise that a family member gave me. Like, I really enjoyed it, but I'm not one of these hardcore fans. But I think people like me too are just they bailed because Discovery, after a couple of seasons, it just got insane and it was unwatchable.
Yeah. Before I get to Odin here, I just want to give everyone an update. We now have 2 voters on Criticless. Still heinous. Matt Vader 74 weighed in with his
I better
vote.
get in there.
Did he give it a point?
Let's all get in there right now.
It went up to 1%.
Honest review.
Yes. Odin, so one of the typical things that we saw when fans had criticism about Star Trek Discovery was that they would, by and large, be attacked as being misogynists, racists, homophobes, transphobes, all the phobes, right? And basically that was the excuse that people made to keep this show on the path of wokeness. And I just want to get your opinion on it. Do you think that it is a good tactic for a show and a studio to basically accuse their fan base of being evil people while continuing to push propaganda on them that they have straight up told the studio that they're rejecting.
Absolutely not. It's not a good idea at all. I mean, we've seen this fail in pretty much every single franchise, every single IP that's ever existed. And I always like to bring this up because my only knowledge of Star Trek is, other than the more modern day, modern day Star Trek films, the Abrams verse films. It was DS9, right? I had a handful of episodes of Next Gen that I watched when I was younger. Whenever we do road trips, we would always, back then hotels, you got the free TV channels. There was like 5, 6 of them at the free hotels that didn't have cable, and they almost were always playing Next Gen. And so I had that experience, and then the only series though that I've in Star Trek ever sat down and dedicated to watch the entirety of it was DS9. Loved DS9. I was so happy that was kind of my introduction to Star Trek, and it's made me more intrigued to try out other seasons or other iterations of the show. But this is a terrible idea. You never ever go after your fans in that way when at the same time you're doing exactly what they're complaining about, right? It's one thing. I'm still not for it, but it's one thing to be critical of fans who are saying things that are not true. It's another thing to go after fans that are saying things that are true, and then you double down, triple down, etc.
Yeah, in my house, TNG is on in the background on the TV we're cleaning it up, we're doing spring cleaning, throw TNG on the background, like it's always on. My kids know it well, Voyager, all that stuff. So it's the old school shows are such a staple, and for them to deviate from that formula to try and like do these extra woke things, like there's an argument to be made that Star Trek's always been progressive, and I think it has. There's always been progressive like thought experiments and these ideas in the show that push narratives and push these eyes, especially in the original series when they had like there's that famous episode where they had the two-faced people or black and white people, and they're fighting amongst each other because it's always been there. But these days it's so ridiculous and it's so over the top, and they're telling you this is how you need to think.
And that's the argument they always use. They always go, it's always been progressive. Remember the black and white guy and the other white and black guy? Like,
it's different. It's different now because
it's the lack of tact.
Yeah,
it's the lack of tact.
It was wrapped in a
good
story, right? There was a way they told a really good story and they wrapped a message into it, and they would try to see it from both sides. Now it's just like they, them, you right wing bigot.
One of them based in facts, data, history. The other complete made up nonsense. I think that's the other thing too. Right? Race relations that happened, right? That is actually something that's real. Whereas the whole they them stuff, it's like, excuse me, that's just nonsensical crap.
Well, do you guys remember when the showrunners of Star Trek Discovery came out and said the Klingons were allegories for MAGA Republicans?
Right. They said that. Yeah, they're MAGA Republicans. The Klingons, like,
God.
As the Klingons are eating like they're young and shit. Like, come on, dude.
There was a clip of TNG that I just saw, and Brian, you might be able to know like what episode it was in, but it was Captain Picard talking to Data, and Data was like, according to history, terrorism is a okay outlet in order to make political change based off of this, this. And Captain Picard's like, well, I can understand why you think that, because humans have been debating this idea for generations and generations, but here's the other side of that argument. And it doesn't tell you which way you need to lean. It just says, here's the two sides of this argument, and here's the story that Star Trek wrapped it around. Now, it's up to the viewer.
How about Measure the Man? Same concept. Like, you literally had two of the main characters, really people that are good and moral, debating in a courtroom on Data's life. Yeah. And they had to argue against each other. Like, that is classic Trek, dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we didn't have any discovery discussions about mental illness, right? When talking about somebody having trouble with how they were.
No, there was plenty of mental illness, just no discussion of it.
Yeah.
Or catering to it, right?
Oh yeah. Definitely catering.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is, like, I'm not gonna do this. One last rant. The they them character, the Trill, who's like who doesn't know what its gender identity is, or hers or its or whatever. It's like, at first it was like a ghost. It was like a thought. It was like its consciousness was in someone's brain, and it still didn't know what it wanted to be. And then like they fix it with the Trill symbiote, and all of it doesn't make any sense from a Star Trek perspective, because like that process for the Trill that requires a sane, competent, healthy person. And you have this person who is just like just a consciousness at some point, who can't even figure out what they are in any degree. They have no idea. And you're just going to drop a trill in there and hope it works out. Jesus, I don't.
Well, real quick, we have a super chat from Paulus Plain for 100 Norwegian krones. Thank you, Paulus. The steakhouse taken over by the woke mind virus veganism. Embrace the new frontiers of new IP. Embrace the caramelization of the steaks. Spoken like a true Norwegian. Yes. Enjoy
We
your
love
frozen
Norwegian
pizza
people.
over there, Paulus. Yes. Oh, don't you know? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
Star
don't you
Trek's
know?
a really, really bad show right now, you
It's a
know?
real
Oh,
bad,
yeah.
That's
All right,
intense.
guys. Real quick, I wanted to ask. I know Brian and Alex have already seen it, but Odin and Blaine, have you guys seen Lady Ballers?
Three quarters.
Clarification, I have not seen it yet.
You've only seen one of the balls?
I've seen maybe like 1.5.
Okay.
Personally,
Part of
I'm not a big fan of it. I don't think it's that funny.
Well, we're going to talk about it very briefly because Alex got on my case yesterday. He's like, "What? We're not talking about Lady Ballers?" Even though he hasn't seen it apparently.
You should have told me. I would have watched it last night.
All right. So
Yeah, right.
on Criticless, the verdict is that it's decent, but that's off of 4 votes. But I wanted to hear everyone's take on it because I've been very critical of Daily Wire's content strategy in the sense that they're trying to they either do stuff that's overly political or they do stuff that's too in line with what Hollywood's already doing and doing it not as good. And I feel like they need to be doing more counter programming where it's like, give us action movies that are reminiscent of like 80s action movies. Give us stuff that's more male centric. Give us stuff that's a little bit more like un-PC comedy, you know, like Blazing Saddles style stuff. Like give us stuff that Hollywood isn't giving us, right? And you know, they had this big push for Lady Ballers. They didn't really have a lot of build up in terms of like the marketing for it, but you know, they released a trailer and it's exclusive to Daily Wire Plus. So if you're not a subscriber, if you're not already in the Ben Shapiro cult, like you don't really have access to watching it.
Whoa. I am a subscriber of Daily Wire. I am not a
I'm not a
Shapiro.
subscriber,
Same here.
but their website
You're
was
right.
broken. Their website was broken for the first 2 days. So I just literally.
What I mean by that is that if you are a big enough Ben Shapiro fan or Daily Wire fan that you subscribe to their paid service, you're the only one who gets access to this stuff,
Also,
right?
I also buy gold from Durham Byron and Shrimp.
Let's go.
Very much, very good.
Yeah.
And don't forget to check out Hello Fresh.
And you know, they said that they couldn't find actual Hollywood actors to you know, agree to, you know, do this movie because they were afraid of the blowback on their careers. So they went to all the Daily Wire regulars and cast Jeremy Boring, who's like the head of Daily Wire, as like the main character in this movie. And you know, it's based off of kind of like Matt Walsh's kind of like, you know, What is a Woman type thing, which was a big hit in terms of like the documentary. And I've been hearing a lot of mixed reviews. I didn't think the trailer was all that funny. The concept is kind of funny, but you know, I don't know if the gags are really real. Now, Brian, I know that you saw this and you really thought it was funny. So can we get your take on it?
Yeah, I didn't think it was a good movie. I thought it was a funny movie, and a movie can be funny and not be good. I think that the acting in a lot of places was, you know, wooden and subpar. I believe that some of the scenes were very much dragged out, and some of the bits were just like overdone, and they weren't funny in the first place. But there was a lot of funny stuff in it, and I applaud their message. I applaud them going hard in the paint to try to like tell a funny story about this actual problem, but without going so heavy-handed that it's that you would think it wouldn't be offensive to these people, but of course everything's offensive. So good luck with that. So I thought there was a lot of funny stuff in it, and I thought that Jeremy Boring did a pretty good job as a main character, as an actor. He was acting pretty good, and I thought the Matt Walsh did a great job. Like, I didn't even recognize Matt Walsh the first time I saw him. I didn't recognize that was him until maybe like the second or third time I saw him. I was like, oh, that's Matt Walsh. I thought they did pretty good, and I thought some of the bits really funny. I actually think it was hilarious when he first interacted with that Karen with the stun gun. I thought that was really funny. And it's watching his entire progression, like as an older sort of washout washed up middle-aged guy sort of figure out how the world's working around him from his like younger kid. My first laugh, hands down, was when he's talking to his daughter in the back of the car, and she's like, "Yeah, and Sue Ann showed me her penis." I immediately laughed. The car flipped around. He was like, "What?" And it was funny. Like that's like set the tone for the entire film. So it's not a good movie, but it's decent and it's funny, and it's only decent because of the bits in it that do work really do work. And to be fair, the bits that don't work really don't work.
So I want to throw this to Odin. Odin, you haven't seen the full movie, but of what you've seen, are you in agreement with Brian?
I mean, I'm kind of leaning more towards bogus in my upcoming Criticless review when I do finish the movie. But to me, everything is so on the nose. Like all of the jokes, I'm like, oh well, yeah, of course you're gonna make a joke about that. Oh, you're making another. Oh yeah, okay, got it. Okay, I'm not surprised by this at all. Right, comedy typically is shocking, or you're not expecting it, right? And so seeing it play out because it wasn't played out in, I think, a very creative way, right? Even good comedy, if you're even expecting it, can still get a laugh or still make you entertained. For me, the reason why it's taking me so long is because I keep falling asleep. Like I honestly just keep falling asleep because I just don't find it to be that entertaining. And I think bringing up the fact that they have all these people in it who are people that I recognize is very distracting too. Because I'm just like, okay, I can't buy you as a character because I know that Jeremy Boring, I know that you are in charge of this whole thing. Ben Shapiro shows up as a referee at one point. I'm like, okay, it's just Ben Shapiro playing Ben Shapiro as a referee. Okay. And then you have many other people. Ted Cruz shows up, and I'm like, okay, yeah. Why would anyone? Again, at what point
those
did
are
they
all
start bringing
trailer
these people
moments?
in?
Like they're all trailer.
I know, but it's also like everything feels like a trailer moment. Like, and that's like the entire movie. It's just like nonstop trailer moments, and I'm like, yeah, but there's not even that good. There's not even that creative. And so yeah, for me, I'm leaning in that bogus direction. There's a couple of things that I do find, I guess, somewhat entertaining. I do agree with the Matt Walsh comment. I think Matt Walsh is the best part of the movie, just because I know who he is, and him dressing up.
He's like the opposite. Yeah, he's like the complete
hippie
opposite.
Dude is funny because it's playing the opposite character. But even then, it's like, unless you know him, I don't think it's funny.
And in the same year that what is it? Old Dads came out by Bill Barr, who it was very much skewering modern culture, and I think me and Alex have seen it and reviewed it. It was great, yeah. And I think in that same year we've got these two things, and I mean I commend them for trying. You gave it the good old college try, like good. I'm glad somebody's trying to do other things, but I think that it does need to be people like Bill Barr and these other comedians and people that are a little more seasoned in this industry that need to be doing this. Even if the Daily Wire can somehow manage to give these guys a sweet enough deal to be like, hey, come on over. But like also siloing this in the Daily Wire, like that just does not seem like a smart idea to me. I understand wanting to bring people to your platform, but like freaking sell it on Amazon or wherever. Like find somewhere to sell this and let people pay to watch it. That way, if somebody is like, oh, they're really onto something here, this is neat, like where did this come from? Oh, this is the Daily Wire, I'll go subscribe. Like that sounds like a smarter business deal than just siloing it and sticking it in Daily Wire and not letting other people see it.
Put it in theaters. Put it in theaters, because guess what? You're not going to have people go out in crazy droves to go see it who are part of that community. Or guess what? You'll have people boycotting it. And guess what? Brings more attention to your streaming service.
Jeremy Boring said that they couldn't get into theaters. I'm not sure how true that is.
I can't buy that, because there are documentaries that have gone. If some of the right wing documentaries can get into theaters, I'm sorry. Like, there's
one called like Obama Burn Town or something, and that was in theater.
If Angel Studios can get Sound of Freedom or Sound of Freedom,
I would argue though Sound of Freedom had no political bias whatsoever.
But Angel Studios has a pipeline to the distributors, so they could have partnered with them or something like that.
And to be fair, part of the reasons I probably thought it was funny is because I didn't pay a dime to see it, because their website was broken for the first 2 days, and they're using WordPress, which is really weird for a multi-million-dollar business.
Dude, their app is so bad. Like
it's using WordPress
constantly.
I saw that the category that was a WordPress style header, so I just deleted the first category, added a hyphen, and hit refresh, and it let me right in. I was like,
"Don't tell anybody."
Right.
So I want to.
This blows my mind being a nobody and being able to create Criticless, and they got that. But
Yeah,
I want to throw this to Alex, because Alex, like you and I have had conversations about Daily Wire's strategy before with like their children's content on BentKey and how like they keep making movies that, you know, that their audience isn't necessarily like aligned with, because it's like we want the stuff that Hollywood isn't making, and you keep either acquiring or making movies that are just like Hollywood light. So what was your take on them deciding to get super political with their first comedy?
I'm okay. I'm like, go political, go crazy.
That wasn't their first comedy though. Sorry, go ahead.
What was their first comedy? Because
The Hyperions.
But they
that was
bought
not an
that
original.
movie.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
they distributed it. They did
original, I
not
see.
create it.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, on BentKey, which I am a subscriber of that as well, because I've got kids and I do want to have stuff that I can just like whatever's on here you can watch. Because I don't trust any other outlet, really. Definitely don't trust Disney Plus. They could turn on a cartoon and get freaking all kinds of nonsense on there. I'm sure on BentKey, if my kids turn on that app and start watching cartoons, we'll be okay.
Yeah.
The problem is they're just not good at doing this yet. They're not seasoned enough. They haven't had their weight behind creating this good content yet. So most of the stuff that they're making is okay, and they're relying on their already dedicated fan base to kind of support them while they work through the kinks of actually creating content. One of the best shows on BentKey that I actually really enjoyed was Runes, but I found out that they purchased it from a Norwegian animation company, and I'm like, that's their best thing on BentKey, was something that they bought from somebody else. It's not actually their original content.
How's the Chinchilla show?
It's
Is it a lesser Bluey, basically?
Yes, it is
Yeah.
a cheesy Bluey, and I watched like 3 episodes of it, and I was like, I'm just gonna go watch Bluey because it's way better.
Yeah.
As far as Lady Baller goes, I saw the trailer and immediately I'm like, okay, here's a couple problems with this. I'm okay with you parroting ridiculousness in real life, but the problem is the Dylan Mulvaney thing, which is this is a ripoff of that. That whole thing is already a parody. Like it's like making Scary Movie 2 and then making another parody of that movie. It's like you're going too ridiculous. You're going too far into this. Like, this is just cringy and weird. And Odin, I think you were the one who said it, was brilliantly said, was like, yeah, this is you're too on the nose. It's too much of a like, this is exactly what's happening in real life. Let's make it funny, because it's like you can't parody something that's already so ridiculous. There's no way of doing it. So it didn't seem very funny. And I like the idea. Like, yeah, you got Ben Shapiro in there, which is going to take you out of the movie. Jeremy Boring is the main character. That's going to kind of like take people out of for the entire thing. It's going to take people out of the movie because you know who he is. There's so many things working against this movie. I hope it's good. Good on you for trying. My idea for what they need to do, you can make a good comedy for $10-20 million. It doesn't take a lot of money to make a good comedy, because comedies are just, it's all in the writing. The situations that people get themselves in, the filming is not that expensive when you have a good written comedy. And I would almost be like, people like Todd Phillips, who made The Hangover, the people who were in charge of making Tropic Thunder, those are the greatest the last good comedies of our generation were in 2010. So like, go to those people as not as Daily Wire, not as this conservative outlet. Go to them as a studio, like Angel Studios or something like that, and say, hey, here's $30 million, make a comedy. We're not going to hold you back. We're not going to tell you that it's too offensive. Make your comedy. We'll put it out in theaters. It'll make money, because it doesn't take much to make money off of a comedy. If it only costs you $20 million to make, you put it in theaters, you make $100 million, boom, you made money. I feel like they need to go outside of their own little bubble, like get out of the Daily Wire, support creators who want to make comedies that used to be made in 2010 and 2009 or whatever, and give those people the outlets that they need to make these good comedies, and then you can be successful that way. You don't have to be like, the Daily Wire made a comedy about Dylan Mulvaney. It's like, don't go that way. That's not going to work.
They need to be like a silent investor versus the face of this. They're not going to be able to shake off the Daily Wire stink to people who don't like the Daily Wire. It's not going to happen. It'd
be the same thing as if like Rachel Maddow supported this comedy movie. Half of the people that would watch that movie are going to be like, oh, Rachel Maddow? God, I can't say her freaking name. That idiot from MSNBC. Mad Cow. She made this movie. Oh, I'm not going to go see it. Yeah. You're cutting your audience in half right away. I mean, you can lean into it, fine, but your best bet to be successful is to cater to as many people as possible. People want good comedies. People miss things like The Hangover and Tropic Thunder and stuff like that. The ultra woke who are going to be offended by that stuff are we can tell now because the Marvels didn't do well. That group of people that you're catering to are not going out there in droves to watch movies. Make movies that cater to people who used to love going to comedies, and they're just too afraid to make them these days. Like, go be a silent investor in those things and allow them to have an outlet. That's when you're going to have your success.
And to this movie specifically, it would have worked better as a short film. Like Lady Ballers, had they made it maybe a 10-minute movie, made it for free, that would have been better. Because I think because they spent so much time getting this as a full-length film, they kind of also lost the whole, Dylan Mulvaney is not really a big thing anymore as far as the biggest peak of it. Like, had they released this over the summer as a 10-minute short, that could have, been a much bigger impact than this thing.
Yeah, timing is always a big factor in success. Real quick, want to hit up a super chat from Dennis Wright for $9.99. I highly recommend Odin's panel discussion on C.S. Lewis's The Screwtape Letters. It feels like elements of society use it as a strategy guide, like destroying culture, not the good kind of strategy.
Thank you.
I love the Screwtape Letters. That's
Carrie Smith's channel. We had that earlier this week, and it was a great discussion.
Yeah, you guys are doing it's like a Christian panel or something like that, right?
Yeah, so Carrie, I, Brahma, and Michelle from Force of Light are kind of like the main people, and we've been trying to get other people who are open about their Christian faith on as well. And we decided to start talking C.S. Lewis. So we've so far done 2 episodes as we've been together, doing one on the Chronicles of Narnia and most recently on the Screwtape Letters. And it was a very, very good discussion.
Awesome. So definitely everyone go check that out. But guys, we had a lot to talk about today, and we talked about it. I want to thank my expert panel of nerds for being here today. Odin, do you have any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
Yes, final thoughts are don't listen to these crazy people about Godzilla -1. It's a phenomenal movie. It's as good as people are saying it is, and it's well worth your time to see in theaters. Check me out over at OMB Reviews, where I do box office and movie reviews. Wife and I are going to see The Boy and the Heron tonight, and very excited for that. And hopefully we'll get up a review either sometime tonight or tomorrow. Thank you as always.
Awesome. And Blaine, any final thoughts? Yeah. And tell people more about how they can get involved in the Criticless community.
Yeah, definitely. Download Criticless for sure, Apple, Android, and like we keep saying, it's Criticless, not list. And we're website as well. If you're out of the country, you can use the website, and we have a very mobile-friendly version of it. So download it. Follow us on all the social medias as well, so that people know that we're a thing, because apparently social media is currency these days. So we need to look real and like we do what we say. So follow us everywhere as well. And I mean, definitely also hop into Alex's group, the Salty Nerd group in Criticless, because he's trying to hit certain numbers on there. So, and look, we really appreciate you guys. It's been great. We're only like 4 months and a couple days into this, and really, I think we're doing excellent. I mean, even like Odin was talking about with -1, like we've already got 26 reviewers in there. It's sitting at a most excellent. This is a really fun platform to use. People that are using it are having a really good time, and I think that we're only going to grow from here. And as we kind of talk about with the Daily Wire, like there needs to be other sources for people to go, and places, people creating things and putting into culture, and that's what we want to do. That's why I created this. I wanted to help culture. I thought that Rotten Tomatoes and a lot of these other platforms and things are rotten to its core. This is a free speech platform. I really want people to be able to do and say what they want about film and really have open conversations, and that's what's happening over at Criticless. And I mean, even people like Alex are allowed to hate the Goonies, and we let him. I mean, if it was up to me, I would nuke his account right now. But it would just be
I just saw that. I was like, "What's your problem, dude?"
Yeah.
Oh, I went hard.
We need to have public trials on Criticless. Okay.
Listen, I'm not opposed to that. Listen, we can do that.
How many downvotes did that review get?
Oh yeah, it's gotten quite a few.
Yeah.
So
I don't downvote often. I downvoted that one.
Yeah. The Criticless still has a thumbs down button, unlike all these other like soft freaking apps. So if I say something that is offensive to you, downvote my thing. I don't care. Do it.
Tell him what an idiot he is, because he might need to hear it. So
yeah, go ahead.
I love it. The comments on this review are beautiful, man. I love it.
Oh yeah, that whole day was literally, he just took over Criticless for a whole day, just people being like, "What an idiot!" So, but yeah, come join us over at Criticless. It's a fun time.
Our fearless leader is indeed an influencer. But before we get to him, I want to throw it over to Brian from the Popcast. Any final thoughts? Where can people find more of you? And tell us how much you love Star Wars.
Gotta bring up Star Wars every single time. Yeah, listen, you can find me at our main channel at the Popcast, Popcast. And also, please go to the Popcast Live, our Unleashed channel. It's at the Popcast Live. For some reason, for 3.5 months, we have a net loss of subscribers. And I know it's because we got demonetized and we got a ton of subscribers from a couple of shorts that we deleted. And they're probably just on their way out. But boy, would it be a good Christmas present this year to see that number just not be negative. I don't need it to be positive, just not be a net negative for the month of December. So if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, please go subscribe to our live channel. Thank you.
Well, I guarantee you that Fluffy Panda, your biggest fan, is going to be the first one to hop over there and subscribe.
Oh, I know. Fluffy fan. He actually actively campaigns for people to unsubscribe. That's...
But he loves you. He loves you.
He does. He does.
All right, Alex, what do we got going on over at the Salty Nerd Podcast channel this week? You want to fill us in?
Yeah. So this week on Tuesday, 3 out of the 4 panelists on our live stream is going to be out. Jude's got something going on. I've got something going on. Matt Vader's got family in town. So we're taking a break. But Kadish is going to be doing a very special how to produce a proper live stream YouTube channel collaboration with a bunch of other guys that produce live streams. It's gonna be very educational. So if you're a YouTuber or if you want to be a YouTuber, I would suggest you guys tune in on Tuesday. But I am very excited for what we have going on in 2024. We're shaking things up. We spent, Kadish specifically, spent a lot of time and money this year researching how we can properly grow our channel. And 2024, we're going to be really hitting the hammer hard with trying out some new ideas, coming up with a lot of fun things that we're going to do for our audience. I hope you guys are ready for it, and I hope you support us in our little shakeup. We're still going to be the normal people that we are. We're still going to talking about goofy movies and making fun of things, but it's going to be a different format, so I look forward to that. And if I can, just for a minute, because I really wanted to, but I haven't had a chance to talk about Blue-Eyed Samurai on our channel in any way. Yes. I just want to take this opportunity. Guys, it's on Netflix, I think, right? Yeah, Netflix. Go check out Blue-Eyed Samurai. I know the initial idea, if you just look at it from the surface, it looks like another freaking overpowered female, yay, let's go girl power thing. It is an absolutely stunning and fun and incredible animated movie. Or TV show. Is it a TV show?
Yes, TV show.
It feels. I binge watched the whole freaking thing. It felt like a movie. Yeah. Well worth it. Go check out Blue-Eyed Samurai. That's my recommendation for the week. If you have time, go check it out. It's so freaking awesome.
And what do we got coming out tomorrow, Alex?
Tomorrow, I am currently editing Viva Las Vegas, the Elvis Presley movie from the 60s. We had so much freaking fun talking about this movie, and I cannot wait to show you guys the final product. I'm working really hard on the edit to make it fun and poppy. We have a lot of jokes, misogyny up the wazoo. It's so fun. Murder and death and race cars and hot chicks dancing. It's an amazing movie, and for Las Vegas locals, we absolutely love talking about it. So I hope you tune into that video. It'll be dropping tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun, so definitely check that out, and then tune into to Kadish on Tuesday for the live stream.
And just want to remind everyone to become part of the Salty Nerd community. Become an SJW, Salty Justice Warrior, over at saltynerddiscord.com. If you have the Discord app installed, whether it be on your phone or your computer, just type in that domain name. That will give you the invite to our Discord, and you can come in there and start participating in all the wonderful discussions that we have over there. It's a really fun community, and we're hoping to grow it over the course of next year. And of course, big shout out to everyone who gave us super chats. We really appreciate you guys. Gavin Blackburn, the Joker's Voice, Mexican Iron Man, No Money G, Hugh Heaton, William Forbus, Mr. Tickletrunk, Jonas J. Campbell, Paulus Plain, and Dennis Wright. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for supporting the show and being here and interacting with us and donating. We really appreciate that from you guys, and you're one of the big reasons why we do this. So, and again, thank you, panel, for the wonderful discussions, and be sure to tune in next week, same salty time, same salty channel, as we have yet another Salty Saturday morning. Until then, Alex, you want to tell them?
Stay salty, my friends.
Yeah!